The age of retrospectives has returned, and the man, the myth, the legend, the me, is here to talk about BoJack Horseman. You may be thinking to yourself, oh my god, not another one, please. There's already so many out there, I can't take any more. Well, I'll tell you this, missy, this is going to be the best, most in-depth, probably not, retrospective you have ever seen. So make sure to get yourself some snacks and treats and everything you need for this long journey, because it's going to be a fun time. It's going to be, actually, fun might not be the right word, it's BoJack Horseman we're talking about after all, but it's going to be a journey nonetheless. I hope you enjoy. For those of you who don't know about this amazing, spectacular, and honestly quite traumatizing show, it came out in the glorious years of 2014 and to immediate success, instantaneously forming a large and loyal fanbase, as if to say it was Thanos gathering the fucking gems. Seriously guys, who sold their bloody soul to create this absolute masterpiece? The show of BoJack Horseman ran for 6 good seasons. And then it ended. It just ended. Like, why? Bring it back, please. From my feeble understanding of the situation, Netflix simply felt, you guys have had enough seasons and no more seasons for you guys. And the fans were like, no, please don't do this, Netflix. But Netflix was like, no, I'm standing my ground. And they did, unfortunately, leaving many fans heartbroken that there wouldn't be a season 7, and many people upset in the way that season 6 had ended. Okay, perhaps that's a bit of an exaggeration. People still loved it still did amazing, and the review scores were spectacular. I just remember when season 6 had come out that there was a tiny bit of an uproar about this season not being as good as people had expected. That was probably a very tiny minority. However, for a show like BoJack, which seems to be beloved and adored worldwide, even the tiniest bit of criticism seems like a lot. How dare you criticize my show, you foul, pestering creature? I actually relished in the complexities of the final season and thoroughly enjoyed the storytelling. While it wasn't perfect, I believe it still lives up to the excellent standards that this series has created. But of course we won't be talking about any of that right now because this is a season 1 breakdown, so stick around because there's gonna be more parts. BoJack Horseman, which was created by Raphael Bob Waxberg, did I say that correctly? I hope I did, remains till this very day a pillar in Netflix history. A show known for its masterful ability in tackling difficult, mentally torturous topics with tenderness and authenticity, while still being able to expertly interweave comedy into its episodes. So now that we've got this little prologue out of the way, the creation of one of the best shows ever, the creation of my favorite show ever, let's finally get into the episodes. Let us start off with episode 1, the series premiere, and something that introduced us all to this fascinating world of BoJack, the world of discontent, the world of anger, the world of pettiness, the world of misery, the world that we seem to all be addicted to. Like seriously, this show was so addicting to me, can I have another season? Now, just before diving into the content of episode 1, I want to talk about the intro, particularly the music. At the forefront of every episode lies the introduction, one that I believe sets a perfect tone for the season and for the series as a whole. The intro song, which was perfectly created by Patrick and Ralph Carney, lends to an uneasy feeling of tension, restlessness, and pure befuddlement. A feeling that is substantiated by the visual imagery, as we, the viewer, are left to watch as BoJack stumbles past his life as the moments fleet away, seemingly lost in his own mind in a state of invisible agony, surrounded by many, but yet feeling so alone. Was that deep? I feel like that was pretty deep. Oh, you think it was trash and overdramatic and probably a bit too pretentious? Well, too bad, because there's a lot more where that came from. The episode starts us off introducing us to BoJack Horseman, a once famous actor, known for his role in a hit sitcom called Horsing Around. A sitcom that we will come to learn was a huge part of BoJack's life. A segment of his life that even decades after Horsing Around's cancellation, he still constantly relives in his mind. Now, Horsing Around was very far from highbrow entertainment that struck a chord with the critics. However, it did strike a chord with America. America, fuck yeah. I would like to sincerely apologize for whatever the fuck that was. I'm sorry, I'm scared, I have no idea what took over me. It's within this early encounter with BoJack that we figure out his personality, or at least the portion of his personality that seems to be on display 99.99% of the time. While participating in an interview intended to discuss his titular role as the horse from Horsing Around, we get our first view of the seemingly endless platter of toxic traits of Mr. Horseman. In his attempts to circumvent any criticism of the show, Horsing Around, remember, like I said, it wasn't exactly very popular with the critics. His brash ignorance and seemingly mind-boggling unawareness has him literally admitting to driving drunk to the interview, and not only that, he parked in a handicap spot. Somebody arrest him! But fast-forwarding from all his verbal shenanigans during the interview, BoJack is left feeling stumped and at a loss for words when the interviewer asks him, what has BoJack Horseman been up to since the show's cancellation 18 years prior? And there he's left, unsure of how to even answer the question, his eyes darting back and forth. What had he been up to all these years? Surely there had to have been something of importance. Had Horsing Around really been the high point of his career? Of his life? Was there really nothing else? Well, we shall find out! Just stick around. Oh yeah, I know this is a bit late into the video, but did you realize that everybody's a freaking animal? Oh wait, no, there's animals and people as well. Animals and human walking animals looking like creatures, but the people are there as well. Let me rephrase that in English. There are animals that are very humanoid, and there are normal human beings, and there are humanoid animals who get with normal human beings. Is that bestiality? I don't know. What are the rules of this world? It's kind of weird. Well, that aside, after the introduction has played, the episode truly begins, and we meet our first character, well, at least main character, outside of BoJack. Let me introduce you to my friend, Todd Chavez. Okay, so his name's actually Todd, but you'll get that reference if you've watched season 2. Never mind, let's go. So Todd is one of my favorite characters in the entire show. In fact, I think he's my second. I'll tell you who my first is when we finally meet her. He's a character that I truly believe grows with complexities as the seasons go by. And despite the mostly humorous nature of his personality, and what can be interpreted as lack of depth, aside from being the character who probably made me laugh the most and the hardest, there are certain episodes that really solidify to me that there is an intricate nature in Todd's seemingly very simple mind. But he do be saying some stupid shit sometimes. But hey, I guess that's just part of his charm. So let's just clarify how Todd and BoJack came to know each other first of all. To cut a short story short, BoJack threw a party, Todd showed up, Todd never left, mainly because of his mother not allowing him to live with her because of his alternative lifestyles, aka being extremely lazy, and BoJack just went along with it. And the rest is history. Oh wow, how amazing, BoJack, you're so kind and so sweet. Surely you must have the largest heart. That might be your sentiment after hearing that story. You may be thinking, BoJack has to be a lovely man. How kind of him to take in this young lad and give him a place to stay, a roof over his head. Well, I'll let you know there's a tad bit more complexity to that situation. But we'll get to that when we do a little bit more investigating into the peculiar mind of BoJack. Because how selfless was the act? Really? Oh bloody hell, I sounded like Batman there. So early on in the episode, BoJack is having a meeting with a representative of Penguin, a book publisher that he hopes to one day publish his book, a book that he's meant to be writing at this very moment. However, BoJack is having a hard time. Said book would be a memoir, a telling of his life, of the minute details that people are unaware of. Likely something BoJack hopes to bring him back into the limelight, back towards the face of stardom. And something he wants to paint him in the most positive light ever. But if there's one thing you should know about BoJack, his life is far from all positive. In fact, it's quite the opposite. Oh yeah, just to quickly highlight, the editor that he's talking to, who is literally a penguin working for a publisher called Penguins, hilarious. He goes by Pinky Penguin, and he's perpetually nervous, perpetually on edge, and there's something about his character that's just so charming and adorable, and at times unexpectedly funny. He's far from being a main character, so he doesn't make a ton of appearances, especially outside season 1, but honestly, he's one of my favorite characters in the whole bloody show. I know, crazy. But like I said, BoJack Horseman was having a hard time writing this book. He couldn't seem to get his head around it. In fact, I think even BoJack was beginning to understand that he may not have the ability to write a book that would bring him back into the light of stardom, showing absolutely no signs of improvement and squandering what little time he has left. Realizing this fact, Pinky Penguin advises BoJack that perhaps he may need a ghostwriter. But how dare he suggest such a thing? Of course BoJack can do it! Or at least that's what he wants to believe. His ego clearly still deluding him into believing that he has what it takes to write this book without needing any help, but as we'll come to figure out, that doesn't last too long. He requests for just one more week to be able to prove that he has what it takes to be able to do this. To prove that he doesn't need a ghostwriter. Anyways, the next scene literally jumps to a week later and BoJack hasn't done a damn bloody thing. What did you expect? As the episodes go on and the seasons go on, you'll begin to realize that BoJack doesn't exactly keep his word, and he's not exactly trustworthy. He receives a call from Pinky Penguin, who is obviously calling him in reference to the book, but he just hangs up because he's a rude son of a bitch. And, something that you'll discover as the episodes go by, is very inconsiderate about how his actions affect other people. Clearly, Pinky Penguin has told him about the urgency of this book and how it needs to be done in a certain time frame. In fact, they are literally depending on BoJack to save the bloody company. BoJack knows this, but BoJack simply doesn't care. Instead, he sits in his bathrobe, beer in hand, watching Horsing Around, visibly reminiscing about his old days on set. Undoubtedly a very nostalgic time in his life, and one that he constantly wishes he could return to. But that's the thing, BoJack. There's no going back. I mean, Todd even asks him how many times he's watched this specific episode, which further verified my initial suspicions. BoJack is living in the past. While BoJack sits on his couch singing away to the theme song of Horsing Around, having a jolly old time, we the viewer discover one of BoJack's more thorny habits. And by habit I mean he's literally an alcoholic. And yes, I understand he's a horse, so he can drink a lot more than a normal average human being, but still, how does he drink this much, and how is he still alive? But of course, BoJack is dismissive about his consumption of alcohol. But just like in the real world, and like how many real people are affected by it, he uses it as a means to treat the torturous nature of his mental state, a means of escape, a means of mental rest, and it will only do him a lot more damage in the long run. We come to learn that BoJack has recently been dumped by Princess Caroline. Now remember earlier when I told you I'd tell you when my favorite character had been introduced? Well, she's here. Princess Caroline's complexities are labyrinthian in nature. And from my initial watch through as the episodes went by, as the seasons went by, I began to adore Princess Caroline's character more and more despite her shortcomings, despite her many flaws. It all added to this comprehensive construction of her personality, of her character. A character that is loving, that is caring, but who is also held down and bondaged by her fears, her insecurities and her traumas. Not only do I believe she brings a lot of levity to the show, she also brings a lot of emotional weight and lends to a holistic feeling when looking at this cast of characters as a whole. I don't know, I just really like Princess Caroline. She's far from perfect like I've said, and she does a lot of stuff that I don't particularly agree with. But there's simply so much to extrapolate about her character, and there's so much to love about her. At least in my humble opinion. So anyways, like I said, we come to learn that BoJack had recently been broken up with by Princess Caroline. But trust me guys, this is a reoccurring thing in this series, and I'm sure we'll look further into it later on in the video. For now, I'll just let you know that BoJack is not exactly a good boyfriend. Not at all. In fact, what Princess Caroline had assumed was going to be a breakup was actually an admission of guilt by BoJack, because he supposedly wasn't aware that they weren't allowed to see other people, despite it being a relationship. Like, Jesus Christ, BoJack, have some dignity. It quickly cuts to a clip of BoJack cheating on Princess Caroline, and guess what? He's watching Horsing Around. Who'd have guessed? I wouldn't. This is absolutely sick. Somebody send him to jail. The levels of narcissism are just through the roof simply by how infatuated of himself he seems to be. I mean, he literally climaxes not because he's having sex. No, he climaxes because of this fucking line.
Now that's a horse of a different cruller.
Oh, BoJack, get a grip. Simply put, it's clear that BoJack cares very little for Princess Caroline. Don't worry, Princess Caroline. I'll take care of you. Wait a minute. She's a cat. Please, I swear I'm not a furry, I swear. Anyway, it's rather blatant the strong attachment that Princess Carolyn has for BoJack. In fact, it's kind of obvious that she wanted to have a child with him at one point. But what saddens me is that despite the way she is treated by BoJack, which we'll get plenty more examples of, don't worry, she always finds herself coming back to BoJack. It's honestly rather telling of her self-respect, or should I say lack thereof, to put up with just such rudeness, arrogance and insensitivity by BoJack. Like seriously, this guy doesn't deserve her at all. I will say though that this part made me laugh a tiny bit, just a little chuckle, a wee little
Isn't he the cutest baby you ever saw?
What? No, what?
It's during this breakup dinner date scene that we get introduced to Mr. Peanut Butter. Yay! Mr. Peanut Butter is a bit of a mixed bag for me, you see. I initially didn't know what to feel about him. On my first watch through, I knew very little of what to expect in terms of his characteristics and personality. I mean, the way he was introduced almost gave an impression that he'd be some sort of antagonist to BoJack's protagonist. And I say protagonist very, very lightly. He came across to me initially as very braggadocious, almost in a bit of a slimy way. Perhaps someone who took pleasure in BoJack's misery and slathered himself in a layer of fake enthusiasm. But no, he's just a good boy.
You get it, because he's a dog.
And whilst yes, Mr. Peanut Butter's exaggerated, over-enthusiastic personality may be very tiresome and understandably mentally strenuous on BoJack Horseman, I don't believe at all that Mr. Peanut Butter acts with malicious intent. However, what I do believe is that BoJack's hatred goes a bit deeper. At his core, BoJack is a profoundly miserable man, and there are many factors that led to why he is the way he is right now. I don't think BoJack likes seeing people doing better than him in life. I don't think BoJack likes seeing people happy, because he isn't happy. And misery sure loves its company. So we cut back to BoJack and he's sitting with Todd, and Todd suggests that he throws a party perhaps that will help him cheer up. Oh yeah, just to prove how much of a flagrant arsehole he is, this was straight after the dinner with Princess Carolyn. He didn't even drive her home. And when he finally did, after being shouted at multiple times, he throws her out of the bloody car and she has to duck and roll. I mean, he did warn her because he didn't want to have to find parking, but Jesus! He's terrible. At this point, we learn that they not only have intimate relationships with each other, but they also have a professional relationship with each other, because she's his bloody manager. Well, who would have bloody thunk it? I mean, hey, she does show a phenomenal amount of disassociation to still be able to put up with BoJack, even if simply on a professional level. I'd almost be impressed if that wasn't overshadowed by the sheer amount of pity I have for her. Later on, when talking to Pinky the Penguin, real panic starts to set in. He realizes BoJack still hasn't done anything within the set time frame. I mean, blimey, you even see someone falling from the bloody roof through the window. Things are clearly imploding and BoJack is of no help at all. Pinky informs BoJack that there'd be no more waiting around. They would hire him a ghostwriter, a character that is a huge, pivotal part of the entire series. And we'll be meeting her soon. Her name is Diane Nugent. Diane had even written a book in the past about one of BoJack's childhood heroes. In fact, his only childhood hero. Secretariat. That name will definitely come into play in the future. But as for now, let's move on. Back at home with BoJack, it's finally starting to hit him. He doesn't know how to write this book, and that realization stirs up a panic in his soul. Clearly still very hesitant in calling Diane. Todd tries to cheer him up by giving him some words of motivation. But BoJack and Todd's dynamic seems very one-sided, in the sense that one seems like he tries to be a friend, and the other seems to treat Todd with total disdain. Guess who's who? BoJack is so selfish and self-deluded that he even believes he's likable, declaring that he should have never even accepted to write the book, that he views himself as a people-pleaser. Yes, BoJack Horseman, a people-pleaser. And whilst the statement of him wanting everybody to like him definitely has some truth to it, it is legitimately staggeringly painful to try and figure out how BoJack comes to the conclusion that he's likable. But like we've already established, he's kind of delusional. Todd later brings up the suggestion of having a party once again, but BoJack's fed up of this suggestion. Why, Todd? Why do you want a party so much? Well, he did mention it would be an opportunity for BoJack to invite Diane so he could get to meet her, but BoJack is still on the fence about that. But the main reason is, there's literally a whole side plot involving some sort of mafia boss. Is this the same show? It seems as though Todd's gotten himself into a little bit of trouble with some very powerful people, as clearly displayed by this very traumatizing flashback where he's tied up to a chair. So he has some involvement with losing them quite a lot of money. Supposedly, this mafia boss wannabe, I'm sorry, don't hurt me please, due to Todd's involvement, is no longer even able to afford a party for his daughter's 15th birthday. And he threatens Todd. He tells him, you better find me a bloody venue, you prick. Alright, he didn't say prick, but I imagine that's what he was thinking. And this guy's absolutely no joke. He has another bloody hostage, and he shoots him in front of Todd, essentially telling him, this is gonna happen to you next, mate. I think Todd might have PTSD. So basically Todd wants BoJack to have a party so he doesn't bloody die. Anywho, cut to later, BoJack's in the hospital. Oh no, what happened? BoJack, are you okay? He's fine, he's just been a little bit melodramatic. I guess you could call it a panic attack because he's fearful about his future. At least he's got Todd and Princess Carolyn there to keep him company, even though he doesn't deserve them. But hey, that's the complexities of this show. BoJack soon learns that he had what scientists call an anxiety attack. The doctor tells him he's overstressed and that he needs to take it easy. And rightfully so, Princess Carolyn is like, what do you mean take it easy? He does nothing but take it easy. But he insists that he'll try even harder. After a second anxiety attack, still at the hospital, merely because of the fact Princess Carolyn had asked him to call Diane, he finally caves into accepting Todd's suggestion about having a party and inviting the ghostwriter to have a simple, casual conversation. But the convergence of these two individuals will be anything but simple and casual. Oh yeah, and Todd's obviously relieved that he's not going to die. As the party takes place and BoJack is confused as to why this random guy is kissing him on the face and thanking him for holding the party at his house, it's around that point we then meet Diane Nguyen. And honestly, they hit it off rather quickly, and there appears to be a lot of chemistry between them. In terms of characters I liked the most, I'll be very honest. Diane was one of the more polarizing characters. Now don't get me wrong, the depths of her character stretch just as far, and she most definitely has a lot of great moments, as well as her character being really interesting at many points in the show. In the grand scheme of things, she was an excellent character and a pivotal part of the show that made it as good as it was. And whilst I thoroughly appreciate the many dimensions of her character, I just simply didn't connect with her as much as I did the other characters. And there's a lot of stuff she does that annoyed me quite a lot. But hey, none of these people are perfect. Some a lot worse than others. BoJack, I'm looking at you. But that aside, as I'd mentioned, BoJack and Diane were hitting it off. BoJack's preconceived notions to what Diane would be like visibly fizzle away, and they come to an agreement that she would be his ghostwriter. Funnily enough, it's right at the end of the episode that we discover Mr. Peanut Butter is Diane's boyfriend. Let's just say that took BoJack by surprise. This realization comes not long after talking to Diane specifically about Mr. Peanut Butter. What he says about envying Mr. Peanut Butter being too stupid to even realize how horrible the world is enforces one of my prior statements about him simply being jealous of Mr. Peanut Butter's happiness, and not necessarily the fact that Mr. Peanut Butter as a character can be a tad bit overwhelming. The episode ends with BoJack leaning over the ledge of his backyard railing and throwing up an absurd amount of what is that? Episode 2. Did you like that? Yes, I am a musician indeed. Oh wow, you think I'm the best musician you've ever heard? And that I should be topping the charts? You flatter me. We start this brand new episode with BoJack sat alone at a bar looking absolute destitute. And in terms of what he's lacking, let's just say happiness, joy, hope for the future. He's even been randomly observed by this chick across the bar who's clearly making fun of him, making snide remarks while talking to her friend over the phone. I mean, she's partly right. BoJack, you do look miserable. But damn, she didn't have to make it so obvious, Jesus. Hey Sarah, guess who I'm seeing right now? Yeah, from the 90s show? BoJack Horseman. Oh my god, he looks so miserable. No, I'm sure he can't hear me, but he looks so miserable and sad. Why do I sound like Mike Tyson? BoJack is shortly contacted by Princess Cowlin, and by the way, this is hilarious. They have the cat's theme song because she's a cat. Do you get it? Princess Cowlin is simply being a good manager, but we also know she also has a strong spot for BoJack, and she calls to make sure that BoJack is ready for his talk with Diane. And whilst at this point BoJack may think he's prepared for whatever may have to be uprooted from his past by any question Diane may ask, both BoJack and us as the audience are completely unaware of how deep the rabbit hole of trauma goes. I mean, unless you've already watched the show, but then at that point you're completely numb to everything in life and you may as well be a zombie.
This show has affected me in ways that I can never explain.
As he's about to make his way out of the bar, he gathers the courage to confront this bully, as well as her friends who have randomly come, I guess, to torment BoJack in his times of misery. BoJack lays down the law, and oh, it's brutal. Left hook, right hook. Of course, I'm talking about verbally, he doesn't actually hit her. I mean, this dude almost has a mental breakdown, it seems. Man, BoJack has a lot of insecurities. Many of the insecurities stemming from a lack of belief in himself. Seeds that were planted by his mother, but we'll get to her later, because oh boy is she another story.
Essentially, I hate her.
Okay, it's definitely not as black and white as that, but hey, she really fucked BoJack up. And she was pretty fucked up in her childhood too. It's an endless cycle of childhood trauma, really. Whilst the traumas of someone's past can be used to understand why they are the way they are, it can't be used as an excuse to take away responsibility from the individual. But hey, enough about this for now. Let's carry on with the story. After a little bit of BoJack telling her what's what, it seems everything he said essentially fell on deaf ears, because the only thing she heard was BoJack calling her pretty. She asks him, "You think I'm pretty?" Alright, maybe not like that. And you wanna guess what happens next? They do the deed. Somebody please spell out daddy issues. D-A-D-D-Y, say D-A-D-D-Y. Daddy issues. Well, moving on from my expert display of musical ability, it's the morning after BoJack's taking this random woman home, and he wakes up to find Diane in his house after having just tried to shoo away the woman he'd just had sexual intercourse with. Not very gentlemanly of you, BoJack. I mean, hey, this chick doesn't exactly have much self-respect, to be honest. So I don't think she cares very much. And oh yeah, Mr. Peanut Butter happens to be there as well. You see, BoJack had forgotten that he'd sent an email to Diane, asking her to be there at 9 AM. And because she's such a professional, she was. But needless to say, BoJack has absolutely no recollection of this, because guess what? He was high. On what? Horse tranquilizer, yes. I swear that's an actual drug that people do in real life. That's crazy. Hey, don't do drugs. Especially not horse tranquilizers. Jesus, are you trying to die? The email also includes the train of thought of BoJack at the time, a very depressing, dark, and unappealing train to be on. BoJack, mate, you need a therapist. It appears Mr. Peanut Butter is just there to brag about his new reality TV show. I find Mr. Peanut Butter so intriguing at times. Many times I question his lack of self-awareness and wonder when he says some of the things he does, if it's to make other people feel bad, to make other people feel jealous. But what seems to be the prevailing outcome to that thought process is that, yes, he really is oblivious to how much of a tit he can be sometimes. And as much of a good boy Mr. Peanut Butter can be, he can indeed be a tit. The core plot of this episode is rather interesting. It involves BoJack Horseman having a dispute with a Navy SEAL, who is a SEAL. Pure comedy. And of course, with the very elevated nature of this show, this escalates a lot further than one might expect. By the way, Mr. Sealman, I'm with BoJack here. I don't think you can call dibs on a pack of muffins that you've randomly left out before heading to the toilet. How is anyone meant to know that? Oh, you're confused as to what I'm talking about? Yes, this is about a muffin. The entire thing is about a bloody muffin. One that the SEAL had claimed dibs on. As mentioned, he'd needed the toilet at the time, so he put it in the produce section, anticipating that nobody would take it. But clearly he was wrong. Whilst I don't really disagree with BoJack, I don't think he really wanted it all that much. It was more so his ego stopping him from giving the box of muffins away. No, actually, I'm pretty sure that's exactly the case. He literally says he didn't want it. BoJack purchases the cookies, feeling very victorious, but of course only for a short while. The dopamine of victory lasting mere seconds, followed by the next scene which shows BoJack laid flat on the floor, evidently after eating the entire box of muffins. Yeah, I don't think this is going to help his insecurities about being overweight.
It's okay, BoJack. I know what it feels like to wake up from a food coma, not understanding how much food you've eaten, why you've eaten so much food, how it got into your stomach. Oh, double chocolate chip cookies, you cruel mistress.
Sorry, I think that was a bit of trauma leaking right there. It's time for BoJack and Diane to finally discuss about this biography. A tale of his life. A journey into his mind. I should be the advertiser. But BoJack hasn't been very forthcoming about things. And with the visual aid of some flashbacks, we start to understand why. Only wanting to discuss the parts of his life filled with success and fame and his adventures of horsing around, it's visibly evident that any questions about his childhood or his parents really hits a sore spot for BoJack. The first flashback we get of his parents, which is rather short, demonstrates the tumultuous nature of his upbringing, a sandpit of toxicity that he had no option but to grow up in. For now, the discussion between BoJack and Diane is put on pause. Something's come up. Something really stupid. Remember the seal, whose name is Neil by the way, after the whole muffin situation? Would you like to hazard a guess what he did? He went to the news. He literally took this public. BoJack Horseman stole my muffins. He's a terrible person. I'm not joking. And the news reporters taking this with the utmost seriousness. After all, he is a Navy SEAL, and BoJack stole his muffins that he claimed dibs on. Oh, the show's so silly at times. And Diane gives some fantastic advice, telling BoJack not to respond to this because it will only feed into the negativity which the media will of course feed on. But it's rather putative in nature that BoJack only listens to himself. So as she was given the advice, he was already on the phone to the news trying to argue his point. This only leads to an extended argument on live air, and oh no, BoJack's public perception is not looking good.
Yeah, BoJack, I definitely think you could have handled that a tiny bit better.
But who am I to say anything? He's the horse from horsing around, after all. Diane decides that this is a great time to make a second attempt at talking to BoJack about his past, about his parents, to see if perhaps she'd strike lucky this time. And I know I've been hard on BoJack so far, and trust me, he really deserves it. But that's not to dispute the absolute hell he must have gone through as a child. The hell he must have endured. We get to see another flashback of his dynamic with his family, specifically his father, and goodness gracious me, is it hard to watch.
You take a boat from here to New York. You gonna go around the Horn like a gentleman or cut through the Panama Canal like some kind of Democrat?
The canal?
You go around the Horn the way God intended.
As stated before, BoJack's traumas do not excuse his actions as an adult. His many reprehensible deeds that you will hear of throughout this video, and videos to come in the future that cement the deep darkness that lies within BoJack's soul. No, BoJack is not a good person, but I sympathize with BoJack. I feel sorry for him, for what he's endured. For having the rug pulled from right underneath his feet as a child, for not being given the tools needed to navigate through life, for the many demons that hold him down, for never feeling wanted, accepted by those who should have loved him the most. I feel sorry for you, BoJack. But hey, BoJack has no time to answer such preposterous questions. He just sits there in silence, staring at Diane, thinking of his past. Well, at least that's what Diane sees, while he's daydreaming, having bloody flashbacks. Clearly what BoJack needs to do is focus on the whole muffin situation. That is obviously more important, right? Of course, he wouldn't want that to spiral out of control. Well, oops, it's too late now and he's on the news having a live debate.
BoJack, please stop.
Unfortunately, he has no intention to. During this debate, BoJack stands on business, as the young ones say. But the discussion seems to reach a bit further than just the muffins. BoJack can be a bit outrageous at times, but once in a while he does say some interesting things that in my opinion at least hold some merit, and I view as thought-provoking and introspective. Of course the media is flipping and turning everything he's saying, making him seem as bad as possible, who would have guessed? Making insinuations that he hates all troops and has no respect for them at all. Completely taking the nuance out of his statements. Making an honestly fair and analytical assessment that most people are terrible, awful, selfish creatures, and that simply handing someone a gun and training them to be a troop does not automatically make them a good person, nor does it automatically make them a hero. But that doesn't exactly go over well with the viewers. How on earth did we even get here? Oh boy, are these news reporters manipulative. Well, let's just say BoJack's public perception is really in the dirt right now, and they need to find a way out of this. 3 days go by and nothing has changed. BoJack literally has stampedes of people outside his house. They want to tear him down. A multitude of helicopters fluttering about everywhere. Cameras set to gaze at his property. People rallying with signs, calling him cowardly for voicing his opinion. Okay, this is stupid. But of course, it's blatant this was the intention by the writers. It really sheds light to the weaponization of online media and mob mentality, and how false controversy can easily be stirred up by those a majority of people rely on to get their everyday news, without a second thought of actually dissecting whether what they're looking at is true. In an endeavor to escape these people who are now stalking him like a hawk, Diane suggests that they perhaps go to her house with Mr. Peanut Butter. But oh wait, he's filming a reality TV show, so that doesn't help because there's cameras literally everywhere. But Princess Curling comes to save the day. She informs BoJack that she's spoken to Neil the Seal and he's willing to accept an apology. As long as he apologizes publicly and says sorry for everything that he's done, as well as apologize for everything he said about the troops, and also hands him a new pack of muffins and says he appreciates every single thing the military does, and that all troops are heroes. Now, of course, BoJack really struggled with this because it would be going against what he actually believed. But this was fame on the line. What was more important to him? His sense of self-integrity, or the chance to be in the limelight once again? And being on bad standing with the public would likely not help the launch of his book. Well, yeah, what you expected happened. BoJack caves to the pressure and he actually apologizes. Much to his dismay. With the cameras of Mr. Peanut Butter's crew pointing right at him, BoJack begrudgingly apologizes to Neil the Seal, handing him what was supposed to be a box of muffins, but Todd kind of messed up on the assignment. And after a bit of a verbal tussle, the apology is given and things move on. But that's not before BoJack spitting some more facts. This here episode comes to an end with BoJack and Diane sitting on top of the roof. BoJack laments to Diane about his frustrations about people in general, about how people only hear what they want to hear. The irony is, BoJack fails to see how his own words can be reflected onto him, how he is the very people he's talking about. Diane utilizes this moment of BoJack expressing his frustrations to hopefully get a little more information out of him, gently prodding at BoJack to finally open up, because if he wanted something special, if he wanted his book to stand out and not to be just some random or run-of-the-mill pathetic excuse of a biography by a D-list actor, he needed to be on Diane's side, to give her what she needed, to help her tell his story. BoJack asks a rather prophetic question, wondering if she was going to make him look like an asshole. And she responds promptly with, I don't know. Are you an asshole? I don't think that's a question BoJack wants to answer. And there. That is it. It seems they're finally on the same page. Now it's time for the real work to begin. Episode 3. We're gonna be getting to know the character of Sarah Lynn, BoJack's co-host during his time on Horsing Around, which at the time she herself was a child. The story of Sarah Lynn is honestly one filled with tragedy and pain and mystery, because as you'll come to learn, there are some things that the writers leave unanswered. She tells a tale of a child who's grown up in the industry, an industry that many of us now know is full of toxicity and evil, corrupt people that take advantage of vulnerable people, of children, of people in dire circumstances, not caring at all about whatever damage they leave behind. An industry that seems to have a trend of childhood actors turning to drugs and going down a never-ending spiral of misery. Sarah Lynn is just merely another victim of the entertainment industry. The episode starts us off on a shoot of Horsing Around. At this point, BoJack is filming a scene with Sarah Lynn. Sarah Lynn, a child, she seemed to have so much life, so much joy in her eyes. Even at this point, she'd already gone through a lot. But this was at a point where she still had a bit of life in her eyes. But as you'll see from when we meet her at current time, the effects of life have really taken a toll on her. I mean, she had bloody BoJack to look up to. No wonder she's fucked.
The most important thing is you gotta give the people what they want, even if it kills you, even if it empties you out until there's nothing left to empty. No matter what happens, no matter how much it hurts, you don't stop dancing and you don't stop smiling, and you give those people what they want.
And action!
Why aren't you dressed for school, Prickly Muffin?
You see, Sarah Lynn had a troublesome relationship with her family, her mother in particular, but we'll talk about the mother soon because oh boy is she a piece of shite. Because of the constant time she spent with BoJack on set, she looked to BoJack as a father figure. Yeah, I know, not good. Given that BoJack still has the temperament of a bloody 5-year-old. I mean, look at the advice he gives her in this scene. Yeah, BoJack, do us a favor and never have a kid, please. Oh, wait. Anyways, moving on. We're taking on a little time jump, but still not up to current day. Sarah Lynn's a little bit older now, and yeah, things have gone in the trajectory you might have expected. Think Hannah Montana during Wrecking Ball. She's having an interview with a Ryan Seacrest type. Yeah, that's literally what it says. Kind of funny. Wanting to convey to the world that she's no longer that little girl from horsing around. Oh no. She wants the world to see her in a new light.
Sorry Sarah Lynn, I'm gonna have to turn that light off. Turn the light off, please.
No longer does she go by the nickname Prickly Muffin, no. Now she wants to be seen as a symbol. A sex symbol. She even comes out with a bloody music single, forever changing the meaning of the nickname she once had on horsing around. No longer did Prickly Muffin mean the same thing. Yuck. Of course they'd be bloody sexualizing her, using a nickname from when she was a bloody child actor. Absolutely disgusting. At this time, Sarah Lynn is confident she's emboldened by her new maturity. Well, I should say physical maturity because she doesn't seem to have matured much mentally. The Ryan Seacrest type asks her if she's worried that she won't be sexy forever. But of course, the only binoculars she's looking through are short-sighted. And she thinks that she's going to be the new hot thing in the industry forever. But yeah, that's not how it works out. Then boom, she turned 30. Oh god, no, not 30. Oh my goodness. She may as well be a corpse. It's present day now. She's no longer the new hot sexy thing in the industry, and her life has taken a real downward turn. Guess who's supposedly the new big thing now? Her name's Sextina Aquafina, and wanna guess how old she is? 14! Ew! This is undoubtedly commentary about the sexualization of children in the entertainment industry. It's honestly so sickening. And I'm really glad that this show is shedding light on it, because it's really something a lot of people are completely ignorant to or just choose to ignore. And something needs to change, because it seems to be so pervasive in our society. A lot of people need to be heading to jail, and somebody needs to throw away the key. Fuck it, bury that bitch. It is morning time and BoJack is laying in bed. Todd walks in suggesting that they do something fun, something different that day. You've got some bird paparazzi outside stalking BoJack, still asking him about the troops. These guys will come into play later. Oh yeah, by different and fun, they go to buy BoJack a new bed because Todd broke it as he jumped on it. Yeah, cannonball. Very smart, Todd, aren't you?
But hey, at least this would get BoJack out of the house, some fresh air,
some exercise, some vitamin D. Pause.
I'm sure there's absolutely no chance he's gonna bump into Sarah Lynn and it's gonna lead to a bunch of shenanigans that will lead to BoJack doing something really stupid. What are the chances of that?
Okay, yeah, you got me. That's exactly what happens. So, you know Andrew Garfield? Yeah, the Spider-Man guy.
Spider-Man, second best Spider-Man.
It just so happens that very Andrew Garfield has been in a relationship with Sarah Lynn, and said relationship is about to end in a very tumultuous way. Let's just say Sarah Lynn doesn't handle it the best. I mean, I get you, girl. I'd feel sad too. Andrew, don't leave. BoJack and Sarah Lynn bump into each other, this being the first time they'd met in a very long time. Of course, she's very proud of the fact that she's with Andrew Garfield, understandably, and her need for fame and popularity is rather prevalent. In fact, it's very potent. I can smell it from here. One would be justified in asking if she even likes Andrew, or if her infatuation is simply because they are a power couple. Is this just a business decision? What she does next really makes it evident that she's not in a good place mentally. After Andrew breaks up with her, she has a mental breakdown. Her world is shattering beneath her. Not only did she turn 30, ooh, 30, but now she no longer even has her super famous boyfriend. So after she swallows a shitload of pills and stabs herself in the stomach, I know, completely rational, BoJack decides to take her to rehab. Yeah, I think she needs it. Later, back home, BoJack is talking to Diane and telling her about the experience he'd just had. Diane asks a fantastic question to BoJack. How does it feel taking the girl that you raised on TV to rehab? but it just doesn't seem like BoJack really grasps the full extent to the severity of Sarah Lynn's current situation. Perhaps being a severe display of disassociation as a means of coping with his own feelings about the situation, or a lack of emotional bandwidth to even know how to deal or understand a situation like this. Next thing you know, Sarah Lynn's knocking at his door. Fuck going to rehab, she says. Okay, so she didn't actually say that, but it's essentially what she says. No, this is not Sarah Lynn's first rodeo. She's had a drug problem for a very long time. But hey, she thinks she's okay. She doesn't need rehab. Look, they even fixed a stab wound on her stomach with some sellotape.
Sarah Lynn, are you okay? I think it might get infected.
Off she goes again, back on the drugs, snorting whatever's in that container. She's just a girl, and nobody's going to stop her from reaching her high. As you can tell, she's going to be a whole lot of trouble. BoJack, while not trying very hard, actually shows some concern at this point. But that concern is of no help whatsoever, because BoJack only makes things worse. She even tells him straight up, nobody says no to me, so instead of confronting my problems, I'd rather just do what I want, and it would be very helpful if you just let me stay at your place. Now, what BoJack should have done as a responsible adult, as someone who was once her father figure on and off the stage, he should have told her no, to get help, the help that she needed. But instead, BoJack says, yes, I will let you do whatever you want. Come on in. You can stay with me as long as you like. BoJack, you bloody turnip. Sarah Lynn, a prime example of someone who's had no guidance in life. Someone who's grown up to become an entitled, insufferable, rude, callous, and wholly irresponsible adult. And whilst at the end of the day, she is responsible for her actions as an adult, I can't help but feel sorry for her. BoJack seems to be having a hell of a time with Sarah Lynn staying here. It's almost as if he's living out his days on horsing around. Oh wow, BoJack really is stuck in the past. His mannerisms, his tone of speech, the way he's looking at Sarah Lynn. A glow that we haven't yet seen this entire season. Well, at least not current day. Treating Sarah Lynn just like he did back in the day, as her father on Horsing Around. It really does just feel like BoJack is living out this weird fantasy. But BoJack, it's time to grow up. However, it's also very obvious that Sarah Lynn is aware of this. In fact, she seems to be taking advantage of this, of the emotional attachment BoJack has to her. Next thing you know, she's throwing huge parties, drinking tons of alcohol. Yeah, she's not exactly going to be passing any sobriety tests. There's this wee little subplot of Princess Cowlin trying to sign her up and be her manager, but it wasn't particularly something I enjoyed or cared much for. I really do think they kind of shoehorned Princess Cowlin into this, and it was really unnecessary if I'm being honest. None of the jokes landed for me. I didn't laugh at all. I just stood there watching like that Stoneface meme. I am referring to the subplot, of course. I absolutely love this episode. Apart from that. Diane, being the voice of reason, tries to dissect a bit more into the past of BoJack, tries to see exactly the mental frame in which BoJack is coming from, leading him to act like this around Sarah Lynn. And she gets it right on the mark. She queries what his relationship was like with Sarah Lynn when they were both on set together. It's genuinely sad. You can tell Sarah Lynn looked up to him. BoJack at the time failed to see her clear cries for help, cries for attention, cries for guidance. I mean, she even says she wanted to be an architect before her mother interrupted her, saying, "You think you're going to be an architect after what I did to that producer?"
Sweetheart, Mommy didn't do what Mommy did to that Star Search producer so that you could be an architect.
You did what?
Yes, officer. Her. Take her away.
Diane perfectly hypothesizes that this is perhaps BoJack trying to make up for his failures to Sarah Lynn, in an attempt to rid himself of the guilt that he feels inside. And like BoJack is claiming not to be doing, retroactively trying to fix his childhood by perhaps, maybe, being the father that he wishes he had. Quaintly put, the reasons are multifold. As more time passes and Sarah Lynn and her friends are destroying BoJack's house, even Todd has had enough. He urges BoJack to put an end to this because clearly Sarah Lynn is using him, but BoJack is blinded by this sudden infatuation to be some sort of a father figure to her, a feeling that seems to be stemming from a place of guilt. BoJack, you need to put an end to this. Todd even had a hypodermic needle put into his skin. He might be hooked to heroin. But of course, BoJack pretends to remain oblivious to this, living in his own imaginary world as if things are okay.
But hey, surely BoJack won't do anything too bad this episode. Surely nothing will happen between BoJack and Sarah Lynn. Everything's going to be okay and nothing weird happens between them, considering the fact they used to be father and daughter on the hit TV show, horsing around. Surely nothing weird's going to happen.
Oh, Johnny boy, you innocent soul. I'm so sorry I have to tell you this. But the episode gets real weird at the end. But before we get to that, BoJack decides to try and spend the day with Sarah Lynn to bond after such a long time of not having seen each other. But this little outing was simply to nourish BoJack's delusions, to escape his reality. Unfortunately, there is no escape. He even gives Sarah Lynn the most prestigious trophy he's ever won, telling her that he always wished to give this to his child if he ever had one. And I guess Sarah Lynn is simply the closest thing he's ever had to having a child, to having that sort of familial bond. Right now he feels somewhat peaceful, as the credits begin to roll in his head.
Wake up, BoJack, you silly goose, it's not real!
It's actually at this little outing that we learn about a character that will come into play later on. A character that plays a significant role in BoJack's life. Herb Kazaz. Keep that name in memory. It appears to be another day and the party's still going on at BoJack's house. BoJack's in bed. Mr. Peanut Butter calls him and he finds out that Sarah Lynn pawned off his bloody award. What an ungrateful little biatch. She tells him she thought it was stupid and that she already has 1 billion awards and she needed money for drugs, of course. And then a massive argument ensues. Oh god, here it comes.
Mean words are exchanged. The argument ends with Sarah Lynn being like, "You're not my daddy, you're not my dad, stop telling me what to do." And BoJack is like, "You're not my daughter." And then he says, "We're both drunk." And then they do something really disgusting.
Yeah, they had sex. Oh my god. Oh.
I don't care that Sarah Lynn is 30 years old now. This is absolutely vile. BoJack, you sick monster! You knew her when she was a wee little child. You were her father figure at one point. Yes, a terrible one at that, but still, oh my goodness, why? Why would you stoop so low? Send him to jail! And poor Todd has to experience this. Look at him, he's traumatized. Don't worry, Todd, I understand. I understand. It takes Diane making BoJack realize that he's now the one taking advantage of her for him to finally get a bloody grip, while Todd lays on the floor fighting demons. That poor man. He's been traumatized for life. She came to you for help, BoJack. And like Diane says, she has substance abuse issues. She has daddy issues and looked up to you as a child. And you really weren't able to immediately see what was wrong with what you were doing? I'm not buying it. You knew exactly what you were doing, BoJack, and you knew it was wrong. You knew it was very wrong, but you still decided to do it anyways. And then you play ignorant about the depths of your depravity. Hutta! You make me sick. Of course, Princess Carolyn's still doing her thing, trying to get Sarah Lynn to be her client, but that's not really working out. Still really not funny, but hey, it's there. At this point, BoJack finally decides to do the responsible thing, and he goes up to Sarah Lynn and tells her it's time to go to rehab. But she makes it known to BoJack that she will not, and she refuses to get any help. Her insurmountably depressing stream of words can be summarized by simply saying, if BoJack doesn't want her around, she can always find someone else who will enable her addiction, enable her bad habits. This is her. This is her life. The episode ends shortly after, but not before BoJack twisting Diane's words about how the celebrity culture essentially leaves people as hollow husks of themselves. All BoJack hears is that nothing he ever does has any consequences, that it's all society's fault, and he's never to blame. But you see, BoJack, there are consequences. And just because you may not face them immediately, at the end of the day, you will face them.
Hey, episode 4, open up the door. Episode 4, episode 4.
Alright, so this is easily one of my favorite episodes in the entire season. Listen, this moose guy that we'll meet in the episode absolutely cracks me up. I don't know what it is, he's just hilarious.
Fooled me once, shame on you. But teach a man to fool me, and I'll be fooled for the rest of my life.
But hey, let's not get carried away. Let's jump into the episode and see what's crack-a-lacking. Remember when I brought up the name Herb Kazaz? Well, we meet him in this episode. It begins with a flashback back to the days of BoJack doing stand-up comedy, trying his best to make it in the industry. Honestly speaking, the show's looking rather dire. In fact, Herb Kazaz even starts making the audience laugh by making fun of BoJack's badly received set. Of course, it's not very hard to grasp why BoJack doesn't take too kindly to this. But BoJack, let's be honest, your jokes were kinda fucking shite.
You expect me to pay for that? I want a refund right now.
Later on, while BoJack was at the bar, Herb Kazaz introduces himself to BoJack, and of course BoJack is not too happy. His first words being, "Get cancer."
Oh gracious me, I think BoJack put a curse on him. Oh my god, he's an Omega level threat.
After all, it wasn't the last episode that we found out from Sarah Lynn that Herb Kazaz currently has arse cancer. Yeah, but of course that's not something BoJack wanted to talk about at the time. He was too busy living out his father fantasies. Nevertheless, after their initial interaction with each other, things actually start to smooth themselves out. Herb was looking out for BoJack, giving him advice on how to improve on his set, and soon a very strong friendship would be forged. One with a tensile strength that seemed indestructible, but of course, as we know, that friendship doesn't last forever. At least at that very moment in time, BoJack wasn't even drinking. Apparently he didn't drink at all. Now that's a superbly husky contrast when realizing that BoJack seems to be drinking 24/7. In fact, I don't even think BoJack knows what it's like to be not drunk anymore. It's his normal sense of being at this point. So I'm going to put forward a hypothesis. Perhaps BoJack, seeing how his parents were and realizing that alcohol likely had a huge part to play in the downfall of his own family, tried his best to distance himself from becoming anything like them. But as his fame would grow, so would the temptations of the world as well as the stresses that would entice him to use alcohol as a form of escapism, falling into the deadly routines of his family before him, thus continuing the cycle of alcoholism and the grip it seems to have had on the Horseman family. So early off in the episode, the entire crew is all having dinner together. They're currently attending the roast of Gloria Steinman.
We say hello to the character Wayne for the first time. Hello Wayne. Yeah, he's a weird guy.
More on that later though. He's supposedly here to write an article on Mr. Peanut Butter. And oh yeah, he also works for BuzzFeed. What are you really doing here? But I can't forget, of course, the final cherry on top. We also learn he's Diane's ex-boyfriend. But hey, Mr. Peanut Butter doesn't seem to mind.
I guess he seems chill.
For now. We acquire some new information about the Zoe and Zelda effect. Now you're probably wondering, what on earth is the Zoe and Zelda effect? Well, Mr. Peanut Butter once had a show called Mr. Peanut Butter's House. Very likely a rip-off of BoJack's horsing around, and I think BoJack still has a grudge about that even till now. So let's quickly dissect exactly what this theory is. Wayne believes that every single person falls into one of these two categories. Either you're a Zoe or you're a Zelda. Zelda being one half of the twin duo on Mr. Peanut Butter's show, a character that leaned more towards enthusiasm, joy, happiness, positivity, and a brighter outlook on life, whereas Zoe seemed to be her mirror opposite, more so focusing on the negativities in life, lacking the same kind of joy and excitement for life that Zelda has. Would you like to guess which one of the two categories BoJack fits under? Take your time. Take your sweet, sweet time. If you said anything other than Zelda, then you're really quite stupid. Don't worry, I can be stupid too. So yeah, keep that in mind. Zelda, happy-go-lucky, fun, enthusiastic extrovert. Zoe, intelligent, but rather cynical introvert. So you tell me, do you think Wayne's theory has any merit? Do you think everyone falls within one of these two categories, or do you think there can be a mixture of both? But enough about all this other rubbish. This episode is about Todd Chavert. After BoJack belittles him for the billionth time that morning, I'm sure. I mean, the guy even knows what he's doing. He gets joy from bringing Todd down. Remember when I said misery loves company? BoJack is the personification of misery, and oh boy, is he lonely. And Todd is just the company he needs. Because by constantly bringing Todd down and making him feel like an absolute piece of dirt in the sand, at least he can feel better about his miserable life. Todd brings up an apparent rock opera that he had never finished. You heard me right, a rock opera. I'd never heard of this as well until I saw this episode, but thank God I have. Later on, Todd's able to demonstrate his rock opera, showing his musical prowess, something truly to behold. And sure, yeah, maybe only Mr. Peanut Butter clapped at the end, but hey, I loved it, Todd. Don't worry, I loved it. But of course, BoJack is there again to bring Todd down. No, he can't let him have this. He can't let him have this mere victory, this minute victory, a sense of fulfillment that, hey, at least someone enjoys my work, my passion, what I could possibly do in the future. No, he has to take that away from Todd as well, because he can't have Todd having hope. He can't have Todd thinking he can do anything better with his life. No, he needs Todd to feed off Todd's sorrows of meaninglessness, to feed off the fact that, yeah, he's not doing the best in life, but hey, he's doing better than Todd. You're not letting Todd live with you because you have a kind heart. You're letting Todd live with you because you need him to make you not feel any more pathetic than you already do. But of course, Diane sees this as well.
Diane, you is on my wavelength, girl. Twinning.
Sorry, I have no idea what that was. I'm scared.
It's all the chemicals in our food.
You see, Diane sees it how it is. BoJack is constantly clipping Todd's wings. He doesn't want him to soar or fly in the sky like a bird. But the man BoJack remains defiant. He's not going to admit this to be true at all. Of course not. He's simply helping Todd out of the kindness of his heart. Oh, that's what he wants to believe, but I know deep down he knows it's not true. But he can't admit it out loud, of course not. So just to prove Diane wrong, you know what he says? He says, Todd, I'm gonna help you, son. I'm gonna help you achieve your dreams, Todd. You're gonna be a rock opera star any day now. And I'm gonna prove Mrs. Nancy here wrong. That I'm helping you out of kindness of my heart, and nothing else. But of course, at first, Todd can't believe it. He's like, but sir, this don't make no sense. I don't understand. Not too long ago, you called me a pathetic son of a bitch and you said I should die. What's changed, sir? You die? Is you gonna die soon? And BoJack's like, no, son. I just see that you got a lot of untapped potential. So I'm gonna help you here. Because I cares about you. And then Todd's like, well, I'll be damned, sir. Thank you very much. I won't let you down. My rock opera's gonna be amazing, I swear it. Okay, I'd like to apologize to every single American out there. I know that was absolutely horrible. I'm so sorry. I just don't know what that was. I just had to do it. I don't know why. So will BoJack be able to keep to his word? Will he be able to be that support system that Todd needs to perhaps fly, to let his wings go, to soar through the sky and reach his untapped potential? Well, we shall see. We won't talk about how Princess Carolyn has once again fallen for BoJack's non-existent charms. I mean, the dude's... Just look at this.
Did you get there?
Is this really your bar, Princess Carolyn? The dude's having sex with himself. He didn't even notice that you weren't there. Anyways, that silly little foolery aside, after a bit of a rough start with BoJack and Todd on this mission to create the best rock opera in history, they're actually starting to get in sync with one another. They actually seem to be forging some sort of a bond, and BoJack appears to actually care about what Todd is saying. Impossible. I don't believe it. He even invites Todd out for a little meal break.
Someone's clearly kidnapped BoJack and replaced him with an imposter. That's nice. What the fuck is happening?
On the other side of the story, you have Mr. Peanut Butter, Diane, and of course the BuzzFeed editor, who Mr. Peanut Butter seems to be completely oblivious to the perhaps nefarious intentions that he has.
I'm keeping my eyes on you, Mr. Editor Man.
What are your true intentions? Alright, dog, night, bloody hell, calm down. On this little dinner date that BoJack has with Todd, okay, it's not a dinner date, but it's a bromance date, it's a friendship date. We get a better look into the life of Todd and how he came to be in the position that he's currently in. You know what I like about Todd? He's able to admit that he's the one that got himself into the current situation he's in, and he doesn't blame it on anyone else. BoJack, I'm looking at you. Now, there was this one particular game called Decapathon, a game that had Todd on a bloody chokehold. It cemented an addiction so strong in his mind, it was only until after he got kicked out by his mother that he decided that he really needed to get a grip. And also, he literally couldn't play anymore because he didn't have the console, so he didn't really have a choice. Now, keep this information in mind. He's told this to BoJack in confidence, and let's see how BoJack may use this information in the future. But at this current situation, BoJack is like, hey, you're not a loser, you're not a failure, I believe in you. I believe in you, Todd. And we're gonna make this rock opera rock.
What an absolutely perplexing situation. Is that
BoJack actually being supportive? Impossible. Surely my eyes must deceiveth me. For what ultimate purpose dost thou lie to me for? Surely this can't be true. It really seems like a bridge of friendship has been formed. And BoJack is beginning to see Todd as more than just a means to feel better about his own miserable life. But of course it's BoJack Horseman, and if you don't know, BoJack Horseman's not exactly the best at sticking at doing the right thing, so... I don't think it's gonna last very long. In fact, I know it's not. But hey, let's rejoice in the moment while we still have it. Oh yeah, remember the end of the last episode how BoJack had sexual intercourse with Sarah Lynn? I know, disgusting, shame on you, BoJack. Do you also recollect the paparazzi that was stalking BoJack, taking pictures right outside his window? Well yeah, they got the scoop on what BoJack did, and if it gets out, oh boy, it's not gonna look great for him. They end up calling BoJack while he's with Todd, but he's too preoccupied in his own mind to even realize that they're making a threat. Honestly, the whole storyline with them really kind of falls flat for me because I know how it's gonna end. Of course, the first time I'd seen it, I was like, oh buddy, this is going to be interesting. How will this affect BoJack? But actually, it ends in quite an anticlimactic way. However, it does have a good joke there, I guess. But I'm gonna build up suspense, so I won't get to that right now. So we're gonna be meeting this guy called Virgil Van Cleef, and supposedly he's a pretty big deal. Well, according to Todd, and he is talking about rock opera, so I don't really know. What's the fan base on that? How many people actually listen to that? Is that a real thing? So this Van Cleef guy's the guy who says this.
Fool me once, shame on you, but teach a man to fool me, and I'll be fooled for the rest of my life.
And I don't know why. It fucking kills me. Why is that so funny? It's just the way he says it. Fool me once, shame on you. But teach a man to fool me, and I'll be fooled for the rest of my life. But that aside, this is an important moment for Todd. Thanks to Princess Carolyn, he has an opportunity to perform in front of him. This could be the start of his rock opera career for him to take off and fly into the sunset, be who he needs to be, the man he wants to be, the rock opera star of the century. But yeah, that doesn't exactly happen. But no, it's not because Todd bombed at the audition. No, he did fantastic. He did incredible. He did spellbangingly well. I mean, there was the criticism that he needed a third act showstopper, but all in all, he did fantastic. Van Cleef sees a lot of potential in this. He even offers Todd an opportunity to perform at his venue in the next 6 weeks. This was Todd's big break, just as long as nothing goes wrong. And in that moment, BoJack was proud, happy to see Todd winning. Diane was even shocked that BoJack was able to do it, was able to be supportive. It all seemed to be going so well, like BoJack had really actually changed. But of course, snap back to reality. The moment that Todd mentions this will give him the ability to actually move out, have his own life, have his own place, achieve his own dreams. All of a sudden, it starts to hit BoJack like a wrecking ball. He'd be alone once again. So remember that game that Todd opened up to BoJack about? The game that he got extremely addicted to? So addicted, in fact, that he almost threw away his entire life. So addicted he was kicked out of the house by his mother. Yeah, BoJack utilizes that information in such a horrid way. Unfortunately, the more supportive BoJack had departed, and he was back to his old self. An absolute narcissistic, selfish, unthoughtful, absolute donkey. BoJack couldn't have Todd leaving the nest. Oh no. He had to clip his wings. The newest entry of that game that Todd was addicted to, BoJack and Todd just happened to be in a store where the new game was put on sale. What are the chances of that? Why is it so cheap? Surely this can't be because BoJack bought a copy of the game, put it in the for sale basket, went to that exact store that he had put it in with Todd in hopes to entice him to get the game, therefore flunking his duties to create a third-part showstopper, which would as a result mean Todd would not be leaving BoJack. BoJack, you deceptive cretin. Well, BoJack's plan works without a hitch. In fact, he even acquires the help of character actor Margot Martindale. By the way, she's going to be making a lot more appearances in the future. She's hilarious and acutely insane. This was truly nothing short of premeditated by BoJack. On the day that Todd's supposed to perform for investors to actually give him a chance to have a big show, he flopped because he's tired and has not had a single ounce of sleep because he's been playing the game like a bloody drug addict. And of course, BoJack has to make sure that he's really burnt that bridge. Todd even asks him to stop because maybe he could beg for a second chance. But BoJack, in this sick guise of friendship, burns any chance of Todd getting a second opportunity. Truly and utterly despicable. Even character actor Margot Martindale feels a little bit of remorse. But BoJack, he seems to feel nothing. Because at the end of the day, all that matters to him is himself. And there it is, he's done it. He's conned Todd into believing it was all his fault. I mean, it definitely was partly his fault because BoJack didn't force him to play the game. However, BoJack facilitated this to happen. But now not only does Todd think this is completely his fault, he also thinks BoJack is actually on his side. No, Todd. BoJack only wants to bring you down. You just can't see it yet. The episode ends in a really philosophical way with Wayne questioning Diane's whole identity. It comes out that no, he wasn't actually here to write a BuzzFeed article for Mr. Peanut Butter, but in fact he was here to get Diane back because he so sorely missed her. But Diane is happy with Mr. Peanut Butter. He's kind, he's affectionate, he's loving. He's the yin to her yang. And that as cool as Wayne can be, as intelligent as he may seem, as introspective as he may appear, she is happy with Mr. Peanut Butter. But Wayne breaks down her character, telling her likely what she fears. That there is a darkness within her, a darkness that she cannot escape, no matter how far she runs. No matter who she tries to surround herself with, a darkness that will always eclipse her, a darkness that will make itself known. And it's honestly quite the haunting premonition. Perhaps Wayne's theory was right after all. Maybe you can only be one or the other. Either you're a Zoe or you're a Zelda. Which one are you?
Episode 5.
Episode 5, the episode that begins the tomfoolery between BoJack and Diane. I mean, up until this point, they've had a cordial, professional, and platonic relationship. But things are about to take an abrupt turn as they start to spend a lot more time with each other. On top of this, we get a looking glass into the life of Diane and how she grew up, the dynamic she had with her family, and the understandable depressive darkness that's been fostered within her. Hugely due to the way she was and is treated by her family. She's treated like an absolute second-class citizen. These people are awful. These revelations come within the midst of tragedy for Diane. But the amplification of the relationship between BoJack and Diane is completely instigated by the happenings of this episode, and the sense of comfort that they're able to share with one another. But hey, let's calm our bloody horses and start from the beginning. So the episode starts off with BoJack and Diane. They're heading to meet Pinky. But you know the deal, of course it's BoJack, so he's never gonna make it easy. What's meant to be a simple process, BoJack following the rules, getting on the plane, heading to New York, speaking to the publisher, he just has to make a whole deal out of it. So of course he's got a lighter shaped as a gun that shoots fire 20 feet into the bloody air. Why am I surprised? Anyways, after BoJack has to undergo a full cavity search, brother, you put this on yourself. We reunite with Pinky, who's still a nerve of bundles. Wait, what? I meant to say he's still a bundle of nerves. The guy's been having a rough time. He even found a bump. What do you mean, sir? Are you okay? I feel bad for him. He doesn't even have healthcare, but hey, at least he's got BoJack, right? Right? BoJack's reassuring Pinky that everything's going fine, that he's spitting out the most thoughtful, most introspective things you could ever imagine, and that Diane is spinning that shit into gold. It's at this very moment that Diane gets a phone call. Diane heads out to take the phone call. Immediately Diane's out of the office. BoJack says, I don't think it's working out, you see, she's just not damaged enough for me. I need someone with a more sophisticated level of emotional turmoil. What's that I can smell? Oh, it's just self-sabotage. Hello, self-sabotage. You must be a good friend of BoJack's.
Oh yeah, me and BoJack go way back from when he was a wee little chap, man.
Yeah, that guy's definitely on drugs. Anyways, Diane comes back in the room and something's off. And no, not for the reason you may think. You see, Diane just got the news that her father died. But the thing was, she seemed cold about it, almost as if it didn't faze her.
Who was that? The library? Thanking you for never returning a book late?
That was my brother Tommy. My dad just died.
Oh my god.
Did we talk about firming up the release date? I was thinking late September.
I am so sorry.
Now this immediately indicates to me that there are concerns within the dynamic of the family, or that perhaps she has a very atypical way of dealing with trauma. Diane at this point in the series is yet to show her more sensitive side, her more vulnerable side. She seems partly cut off from reality, and my intuition was telling me that something was wrong. Not that her character lacked any empathy, but there were traumas in her past leading her to act in this rather peculiar way. Because of course, as we should all know, not everybody grieves in the same way, and there are those who have had so much damage inflicted to them, whether mentally or physically, that they don't even have the bandwidth to be able to grieve anymore. So what do? They push that shit down, deep underground as far as it can go, until one day There's just no more space left. My questions are partially answered when BoJack says he's so sorry about what's just happened to her. Diane quickly brushes it off, saying it's okay, he was old and absolutely the worst, so that makes it fine. I'm absolutely not dealing with any trauma at all, but I think there's more to this. What exactly made him the worst? We'll come to figure this all out soon as BoJack and Diane end up going to Diane's hometown. It's time to meet Diane's family and see what type of environment she grew up in. Perhaps we'll get a tad bit more insight as to why she is the way she is, why she is so closed off, and some may say cold. Well, at least from what we've seen of her so far. Trust me, the depths of her character go far, far deeper. On the car ride to Diane's family home, we start to learn that they have a lot more similarity, they being BoJack and Diane. They both grew up with a large sense of loneliness, a feeling of emptiness within themselves. BoJack being neglected by his mother and his father, and Diane being neglected by her mother, her father, and her brothers. Both being from completely different backgrounds, but growing up with the same isolating traumas. And whilst of course their personalities do greatly differ, there are actually a lot more similarities between the two than you may expect. And probably more than Diane would like to admit. This sharing of trauma would appear to be an initial base, harboring the potential for emotional growth and connection between the two of them. So Diane makes it back to her family house and hey, everything seems okay at first. They're nice, they're greeting her, they seem to be welcoming to her presence. What could it possibly be that makes them so bad? Well, you'll soon come to figure out that these guys are blood-curdlingly idiotic. I hate them. They are just really annoying and a few IQ points above a fucking fruit. And even your standard Tesco apple has more emotional intelligence. The mother seems like a dumb, narcissistic, incredibly, incredulously dim-witted fool who has clearly picked favourites in her household. And her brothers behave like bullies from an 80s movies you find at the back of a DVD store. Blatantly an overpowering sense of jealousy that Diane actually went out to do something with her life and didn't stay here with them to do nothing, waste and wither away, watching football and drinking beer and only using 1% of their brain capacity. And can we also bring up that the father is dead, the father passed away, but everybody seems chill, like this is some sort of weird family gathering. Hello, what about him? He must have been an absolutely terrible father figure for them to not give a damn about him. Or at least that's very much how it appears. Oh, would you take a look? The dead father is right there, sitting on the bloody chair. But how lovely of them, they've put some ice on him. That's perfectly fine. I'm sure it doesn't smell like deceased person in that room. The consummation of Diane's very unwarm home welcoming is absolutely unsettling, as we begin to broaden our knowledge as to the many branches that formulate her personality. Oh yeah, Todd's also in this episode, so let's quickly talk about him. Obviously, BoJack's not currently with him, so Todd's alone in BoJack's house. So what is Todd getting up to? Oh, don't mind him, he's just fraudulently pretending to be a celebrity called David Boreanaz, claiming that BoJack's house is actually the house of said celebrity, and thus raking in a ton of money illegally. And of course, Princess Caroline also wants a cut of this because she's now Todd's manager. She became Todd's manager in the last episode, in a very sleazy way. And Todd, lacking the many brain cells that he lacks, failed to read the contract. But hey, since he's rock up or fail, this might be the new thing. Fraud! We'll reunite with these guys later. Let's head back to BoJack and Diane. So obviously, the only reason that Diane's family even invited her here was not to mourn the death of her father. No. It was so she could organize the funeral because of course they don't want to. That's too much effort. Naturally, these people don't want to help Diane. I mean, why should they? Diane is the one who should be doing all the hard work because they're busy with their own lives, like watching TV and drinking alcohol and complaining about immigrants stealing all their jobs when they themselves are immigrants because they're from Vietnam. It seems one of them is in severe denial about that. So here's a quick synopsis from what I've gathered by watching them and watching the dynamic between the family. Diane seems to be the only one there who's not short of a few brain cells, and evidently it appears her lack of incompetence makes the others jealous, therefore breeding spite within them. Diane ends up becoming the black sheep of the family, which is ironic because one of her siblings is literally a sheep or a goat. I'm not even going to ask about that. How does it work? What? Diane, capitulating any attempts of them making her dumber, decides to, of course, leave her hometown and do something with her life. But man, isn't it funny? There is literally a black sheep in the family, but figuratively, the real black sheep is Diane. And BoJack's no help either because he's too preoccupied taking in all the praise and love from the family because they used to watch horsing around, and to them, he's awesome and amazing, and that's all he really wants. That sense of dopamine from knowing other people actually like him. Yay, praise, all this praise, give me more praise, please. Feed me Seymour. Sorry about that. But Diane takes on this burden of sorting out her father's funeral, well, she's all too tired to complain and argue with her family because at the end of the day she knows how it's going to end and it never ends with her on top. So there they are, the family, telling BoJack about the horrific things they've done to Diane, and there BoJack is laughing like an absolute clown. Now very much implicit to their mockery upon her. Shame on you, BoJack. But as previously mentioned, all BoJack cares about right now is connecting with these new people because hey, they like him, so he likes them. Over with Todd, he's still pretending this is the House of Boreanus, literally giving tours around and everything. Fraudulent bastard. You could say business-minded as well, but no Todd, you're gonna jail. Princess Carolyn's getting all involved. Oh, she sees the money signs everywhere. As I've said, I love Princess Carolyn, but my gosh, can she be a money-hungry, immoral vampire that sucks on any opportunity to take advantage of some people in hopes of building up her own ladder in the industry. And there'll be more examples in the future of how far she's really willing to go. These two are raking in the money now. Todd and Princess Carolyn are in deeper than they could imagine. They've opened up banks offshore, they're hiding money under the mattresses. What's going on? This is absolutely diabolical. And Todd's conscience, which happens to sound exactly like BoJack, is trying to tell him to stop and fix what he's doing. But no, Todd doesn't listen to that, of course, and he drowns out the thoughts with a whole stack of money. Speak to the cash. Long story short, things come crumbling down at the end of the episode and Todd ends up getting arrested, and yeah, he's gonna be arrested for a tiny bit. It even leads on to the next episode, which has some stupendously comical bits, and I absolutely love this show. So after an entire day of BoJack and Diane planning a funeral for her father, something that's taken her a lot of time and effort and she's not had a morsel of help from her family members, no one even bloody shows up. Do you know why? Because they turned their father into freaking chum. You heard me right, they ground him up like fucking mashed potatoes. Oh, because they suddenly realized the father wouldn't want a funeral. No, he'd want to be blended in a bloody machine. Yeah, send these guys to jail right now. Diane is categorically at her breaking point. She can't take any more of this buffoonery, any more of this selfish shenanigans. She's had it. And boom, just like an explosion, her true feelings finally come out. Man, it's really sad to see the way Diane is gaslit by her family. Anytime she brings forth any sort of criticism, as though to say the mere fact that Diane wanted to do something with her life is their scapegoat to flee from actually confronting their attitudes, their behaviors and their stupidness. And you can tell how taxing this is on Diane, and I'm sure the effects are compounding. This was what she had to deal with growing up. No wonder she grew to be more reserved. No wonder she grew to be a Zoe. And oh yeah, at this point, BoJack's been absolutely no help at all. Remember how earlier in the episode I'd mentioned that they get closer in this episode? Yeah, that's all towards right at the end. Up until this point, he's an absolute bozo and seems to be oblivious to the very harmful effects his words are having on Diane, essentially making her feel like a downright failure in life. But what seems to be somewhat disconcerting is the fact that it seems BoJack actually may have thought he was helping in this moment. Like how? Ding ding ding, we've got evidence which shows someone who wasn't very socialized as a child. And it genuinely appears BoJack has issues reading the room. Beyond his narcissism, beyond his selfishness, beyond his grandiose foolery, I believe a huge part of BoJack's insensitivity is due to how he was raised. And obviously he's not taken steps to improve that as he's gotten older, so he's remained stagnant at a certain point in his life, and it's been a very long time. It takes Diane practically having a mental breakdown for BoJack to have an inkling that maybe he did something wrong, maybe he said something wrong. And thankfully he decided it's a smart idea that he better find out where she is so she doesn't do anything she'll regret. Because she's currently got her father, who's literally chum, in the back of a truck, and let's hope she doesn't do anything crazy. BoJack ends up later finding her, but before he did, she was on the phone with Mr. Peanut Butter, and despite Wayne's rather grim outlook on who she was as a person, or at least who she was pretending to be, and his view that Mr. Peanut Butter and Diane just weren't meant to be together, and clearly she needs someone like him in her life, at least at this very moment, you really see the sweet compassion that Mr. Peanut Butter has for Diane, and you see how it's reciprocated by her, and it's really gentle. Different personality types can very much work well together in relationships. However, when these differences are mixed together with an accumulation of traumas and or emotional instabilities or insecurities that are a core part of why they are the way they are, that's when I believe troubles may start to occur. So as previously mentioned, BoJack had found Diane, and what he does next it really was touching. He's written out this letter to her, well, disguised as Diane's old pen pal, but obviously it's BoJack. And in a frozen second in time, he seems so genuine, so empathetic to her situation, so understanding, so compassionate. It's little scenes like this here and there, and yes, these moments are not very common at all, I'm very aware. It reminds me that BoJack is not this heartless monster who doesn't care about anyone in the slightest. Whilst, yes, he is incredibly selfish, self-centered, and whilst he does absolutely self-sabotage at every turn, deep down there, deep down, there is good. Your actions make you who you are. It's an accumulation of his words, of his actions, that will determine his character. And yes, life is far more complicated than good guys and bad guys. There's always grey. Oftentimes than not, white and black doesn't even really exist. It's just different variations of grey. So I believe deep down BoJack wants to be a good guy. But does he have what it takes to put in the work to be the person he wants to be deep down? Episode 6, episode 6, episode 6, episode 6.
Oh, how quickly we've gotten here. We're almost halfway through the season and it's only... Oh, it's been like an hour and a half.
Jesus, this video's long. I hope you liked the video, please. This has been a lot of hard work. Please like, subscribe, and share. I really would appreciate it. It's within this episode that we start to see the effects that the prior episode had within the relationship of BoJack and Diane. Before, things were very much more on the platonic side. BoJack knew she had a boyfriend, Mr. Peanut Butter, but it starts to get a bit frisky. When I say frisky, BoJack essentially starts to like Diane. I mean, these guys have really started to form a bond. Even Mr. Peanut Butter's noticing, and Mr. Peanut Butter's not exactly the jealous type. Remember how he was with Wayne? He didn't seem to care at all. But now with BoJack, oh, there's something different. I mean, fuck, they even have inside jokes. What's going on, BoJack? Mr. Peanut Butter straight up asks him the question, hey, do I have anything to be worried about? But of course BoJack says, no, of course not. You have nothing to be worried about. Me? BoJack Horseman? Why would I do anything sleazy like that? He doesn't even sound bloody convincing. Jesus, BoJack. But hey, I guess it's enough to get Mr. Peanut Butter off his tail because apparently he just believes it. Come on, Mr. Peanut Butter, you're smarter than that. Actually, I take that back. You're not. But what really makes this rather lewd and sleazy is that I think BoJack is going into this with the intentions. Actually, no, I don't think. I'm pretty much certain. Actually, no, I'm 100% certain. He's going into this with 100% intentions of stealing Diane off Mr. Peanut Butter, not giving a damn about who he hurts. Whereas I think it's safe to assume that Diane just thinks, oh wow, I've made a new friend. BoJack is actually someone I can see as a companion in life, platonically. There's a deep visceral hatred I have for homewreckers like, Jesus Christ, how are you doing, little bitch? I hate you, BoJack, I fucking hate you. Sorry. Sorry. The first part of the episode is essentially a massive cock measuring contest to see who's the real man, who's the manliest of them all, and who really deserves Diane. Surely it's Mr. Peanut Butter. No, surely it's BoJack. This goes on for a fair bit, and at this point I'm starting to question if Diane is actually oblivious to BoJack's intentions because it seems kind of obvious. Like, hello, use your eyes. So remember how Todd got arrested the last episode? Well, he's making new friends. Oh, don't mind him, he's just getting indoctrinated into the Aryan society. I mean, the new friend he's made doesn't seem too bad. Actually, he does. Let's just totally ignore the tattoo that says hatred on his forehead. But hey, at least Todd's not alone. Todd, blink twice if you need help. On the opposing side of the camp, BoJack and Mr. Peanut Butter are continuing to perform increasingly stupid and petty challenges. Todd gets in contact with BoJack as soon as he can, likely feeling a gargantuan amount of helplessness in a place where he can easily be chewed up and spat out like a piece of gum. These juvenile competitions carry on for a bit longer until BoJack actually wins. Yes, he's the champion of the arm wrestling thing that he did. Well done, BoJack. It would be rather shocking if BoJack actually lost because, you know, he's a horse. And Mr. Peanut Butter's a dog? It's not exactly fair, is it? But BoJack succeeded, yes, exactly what he wanted, but Diane wasn't even awake to see it. The whole reason this started in the first place. The brassish nonsense had gone on for so long she dozed off long ago. So yes, BoJack might have won these silly games, but at the end of the day, Mr. Peanut Butter still has Diane. And BoJack knows this. You can just see the vivid abyss of sadness within his eyes. There is truly such a sense of hollowness and vacancy of self when looking at BoJack in this exact moment. Diane seems to be one of the few people that actually takes time to understand BoJack, to try and figure out the workings of his mind, the way he thinks, the way he ticks. In many ways, their similarities brings him a sense of comfort. And this new feeling for him, this sense of infatuation with this new person who seems to be filling this emotional void he has, this new feeling is being threatened. And right now, Mr. Peanut Butter is the threat. At least to BoJack anyways. Diane is his new temporary drug, and he needs another fix. And Mr. Peanut Butter, all Mr. Peanut Butter is doing is taking that fix away. Because at the end of the day, what matters to BoJack most of all is himself. At this point, BoJack feels like there's not much he can do, so what he does is sit down and he starts to drink his sorrows away, drink like a bloody titan. But wow, that may not have been the best idea. Who could have imagined? Of course, BoJack got drunk up to the point where he was completely blanked out, unable to remember what he actually had gotten up to the night prior. I beg your pardon, he did what? He stole the D from the Hollywood sign because D represents Diane. You're fucking joking, right? I can confirm that I am not joking at all. In BoJack's drunken stoop, he had climbed all the way to the Hollywood sign and ripped off the D, pause, as a declaration of love to Diane. Of course, nothing about that screams crazy whatsoever. It's just someone climbing up all the way to the Hollywood sign, somehow getting it off its hinges, ripping it out, and that massive letter D somehow managing to get to their property. All this in the name of love, which we all know is not actually love, it's more so infatuation for a woman who doesn't actually know about his feeling. Yeah, BoJack, totally normal. Thankfully, BoJack is aware of how much of a lunatic he'd look like, so I guess in a sense he is partially self-aware at least. Mr. Peanut Butter's there still hot on BoJack's tail because he knows that BoJack likes Diane, and I mean likes Diane. Do you wanna know how he knows? BoJack left a voicemail essentially saying, hey, I'm gonna steal this big D, pause, and this is my declaration of love. Surely she'll love me after this. But Mr. Peanut Butter's not having this. He tries to cut a deal with BoJack, telling him that he'll help him get rid of the big D as long as he refuses to talk to Diane again. But of course BoJack can't accept this because Diane's literally writing a book for him. I mean, he's still on the defensive about actually liking Diane, or at least that's what he's telling Mr. Peanut Butter, but it couldn't be any clearer.
That he's lying. But they do come to a deal that BoJack would at least stop trying to pursue Diane, for goodness sake. Wanna place bets on how long that's gonna last? Not very long at all. Well, now they're trying to conjure up a plan on how to actually get rid of this massive D sign, which has left the Hollywood sign as Hollywoo instead. Todd's trying to get some bail money so he can actually get out of jail, where he just so happens to be getting courted by two rival gangs. Who comes up with this shit? I'll be honest, this subplot is incredibly goofy, but I actually find it quite funny. And hey, Todd gets a sense of feeling wanted, something he's not all too familiar with, especially since living with BoJack. Although these are not the people I would want to keep company. Todd, get out of there! I mean, he doesn't really have much of an option, since BoJack is not actually giving him any bail money to be able to get out of jail. Right now, they need to figure out a plan to get rid of this D. Pause once again. But something perfect comes up. It turns out Mr. Peanut Butter has a helicopter. How much do these guys get paid? This would bring forth an opportunity for them to make a plan in which they'd be able to get rid of the D. Said plan involves first of all distraction. He needs to distract people from the massive helicopter that's going to be flying with a big old D attached to it. And how they do that is by BoJack throwing money from the top of the roof. Yes, take my money. Here, look. Don't look at the skies where there's a massive helicopter which would probably be very loud and the big old D dangling from it. Don't look over there. Look at this money. Take these $1 bills. Suspension of disbelief, people. Suspension of disbelief. But this plan doesn't work out all too well. However, singer-songwriter Beyonce just so happened to be walking by and she slips and boom, you've got a new story and everybody's distracted. Everybody's looking at their phones. Singer-songwriter Beyonce will not be able to perform again. Absolutely tragic. I will be honest, this cracked me up, I don't know why. But hey, Mr. Peanut Butter gets to use this as an opportunity. Or at least that's how he sees it from his point of view. This big D that he's now carrying from his aeroplane, what he decides to do, instead of getting rid of it or returning it back to the Hollywood sign, which is now in Hollywoo, which, funny enough, will continue to be known as Hollywoo for whatever reason, like, are they not going to replace it? Mr. Peanut Butter decides to steal BoJack's idea because that's a totally smart thing to do, and goes public saying he's the one that stole the D from the Hollywood sign. He stole it for love. He stole it for Diane. Ooh, and the public goes wild. Everybody's so happy for him, and everybody's so happy for Diane, and everybody thinks this is amazing. It's big and it's on the news. Nobody even cares about Beyonce anymore. This is so amazing. But here's what I find so perplexing. Mr. Peanut Butter has now been with Diane for what I imagine is enough time to at least understand the core of who she is as a person and her personality, what she typically like and what she typically not like. There really seems to be some sort of disconnect between the two of them, and whilst they do have compassion and love
for each other and they do care about each other, Mr. Peanut Butter's lack of attentiveness and actually trying his best to understand who he's dating will evidently be a huge factor in the downfall of this relationship. Diane, as much as she tried to put on a smile and accept this gift, was forced to be in a situation she really didn't want to be in, with the entirety of America looking at her. All this attention clearly unsettles her, and this is not the type of thing she likes. This is not the way she'd like to accept a gift. For crying out loud, Mr. Peanut Butter, I know you're not evil or anything, but at least try to understand who you're dating. But the upsetting thing is that as silly as Mr. Peanut Butter may seem, and as airheaded as he may appear, he is not completely idiotic. He's not stupid, and he is aware that big old grand gestures are not the way to Diane's heart. It's with this knowledge you can then conclude that he does this type of thing for himself. And this is not the only time he'll make these type of grand gestures. There'll be more to come in the future. And he just doesn't seem to learn his lesson. But don't worry, Mr. Peanut Butter does go through his own character arc and character progression. He's not always as oafish as he currently is right now. I mean, even while BoJack and Diane were talking later on in the day after Mr. Peanut Butter's grand gesture, it's immediately evident just how much BoJack really cares about Diane. How much of a grip Diane has on him. Pause. And despite Diane having known Mr. Peanut Butter for a longer time, it seems BoJack knows who she is more as a person. At this point, Diane has more than a little bit of an inkling that BoJack likes her. I mean, Princess Carolyn even mentioned it earlier. I'm pretty sure a little part of her always knew that there was some sort of chemistry there, and that at least right now, a little part of her feels the same way.
Oh, and what would you know, Mr. Peanut Butter proposed to her right at the end of the episode. Oh my god, another grand gesture. But don't worry, he says there's nobody there. Oh, never mind, there's a whole bunch of people there and they're taking pictures and other things that Diane absolutely would hate. Oh wow, this is amazing, great, well done Mr. Peanut Butter. Absolutely not giving a shit about who you're actually dating and who they are as a person and what they'd actually like. You just clearly are doing this for yourself. Well done Mr. Peanut Butter.
Kind of funny because, you know, he's a golden retriever and he's a dog. He feels the dopamine from the positive reinforcement from the crowd when they're cheering for him, saying, wow, well done Mr. Peanut Butter, you're absolutely amazing, best boyfriend ever. That sort of rush probably goes round his buddy and makes him feel like an absolute good boy, the goodest of boys ever, not taking into account the person he's actually meant to be doing this for instead of himself. Anyways, Diane says yes. And this is in the midst of BoJack sending her a voicemail, finally letting her know how he feels, how he truly feels. Being vulnerable, letting her know the impact that she's had on him, how he feels safe around her, how he feels seen, how he thinks they're meant to be. But it's too late. And whilst I don't really think Diane and Mr. Peanut Butter should be together, to be honest, I definitely don't think BoJack and her should be together either. Whilst the two of them may share similarities, they're both like explosive agents. When put together, they just ignite. But hey, let's see how things go. Will BoJack just accept this news? Because Diane does tell him and it breaks him. It breaks him down. And of course, he jumps into doing what he's used to, drinking his sorrows away. BoJack is yet to fully comprehend the fact that only he can make himself feel fulfilled. Is that something he's even capable of doing? Well, we'll have to see, because time and time again he uses something or someone as a crutch to try and substitute whatever he's missing from himself, and usually this comes in the form of women, whether it's Diane or Princess Carolyn or Charlotte. And time after time after time, it's all about me, 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 me. Always failing to see the bigger picture, always failing to see that he's hurting those that he supposedly cares about, that he's hurting those around him, or simply just closing his eyes to it. Oh yeah, I completely forgot about Todd. Don't worry, he's okay. At least he was at the end. He basically almost gets curb stomped because he was hanging around with two different gangs. So essentially he was cheating on the gangs that were trying to coerce him to join. This is so stupid. Why? But don't worry, all that comes to a brisk end after a helicopter carrying the D that they were trying to bring back to the Hollywood sign gets hit, and there's a prison break. Everybody's free. So Todd manages to leave with his teeth intact. Very silly, very stupid, a lot of fun. I really like this episode.
Welcome back to episode 7.
New episode, new day of BoJack being depressed. And he has quite the bit to be depressed about. I can understand you, BoJack. Heartbreak is terrible. However, you were trying to be a homewrecker, so I can't really sympathize with you, mate. But hey, don't you worry, Princess Carolyn's there to pick him up, being just a boost of motivation BoJack needs, boosting his now depleted ego, which has taken several hits. It was in this episode that I started to realize the extent of Princess Carolyn's turmoil, and honestly how much of a compassionate and thoughtful friend she can be, oftentimes to the point that it truly baffles me as to why she's even wasting her time with people who clearly don't deserve her attention. Like, not to skip past the whole episode, but the way this episode ends really breaks my bloody heart. It's her birthday today, and guess what? Nobody gave a bloody shit, but hey, let me calm down, let's get to that chronologically. So like I said, the episode starts off with Princess Carolyn giving BoJack some words of motivation. He's been drinking all night, as you may have expected. Throughout BoJack's entire mental breakdown, Princess Carolyn's been there for him, and we see that through a slight montage of BoJack's drunk shenanigans. Still, I remain bewildered as to why Princess Carolyn helps BoJack so much despite the lack of respect he has for her, but then it hit me, in a similar way as to how somebody could be confounded that somebody in an abusive relationship would continue to remain in that relationship, sometimes even defending their abusers from other people trying to help them. And no, I'm not saying BoJack is an abuser, well, in some ways he is, at least mentally, but the point I'm trying to make is that I think there may be some similarities in the mental hold that abusers can sometimes have on victims, and BoJack's relationship with Princess Carolyn. We'll definitely be delving more deeply into this in the future because there's episodes that help further understand the dynamics of the relationship and how it all started in the first place. And from there we can extrapolate more conclusions and perhaps come to a bit of a more vivid understanding of the dynamic between BoJack and Princess Carolyn. I mean, in general, I do believe it stems from a lack of self-worth by Princess Carolyn and some deep-rooted insecurities that she's yet to deal with, and in a weird way an addiction to the crazy ups and downs she has with BoJack Horseman, almost as if to say BoJack's her drug and she can't get enough, and whilst she may try her best to resist it, she always ends up coming right back to it. And in the same light that those in awful, terrible relationships can often stay way longer than why anybody could understand, she likely always reverts to the few times that BoJack was actually good to her, essentially deluding herself to the realities of the situation. And if you know anything about abusive people, they can be incredible manipulators. And once again, I'm not saying BoJack is some abusive monster who goes around slapping Princess Carolyn or anything, but he most definitely is a manipulator. Whether he himself is actually fully aware of that fact, or if it's just inherently a part of his characteristics and personality that he doesn't even fully comprehend, is another story. But enough yapping about this, we'll get back to this topic in the future, because like I said, this is a repeating cycle: BoJack and Princess Carolyn, a never-ending love story. Princess Carolyn has gotten BoJack a job advertising bourbon. How perfect! BoJack is the perfect representative because he drinks all the time. Surely, BoJack, you cannot mess this opportunity up. Please! All BoJack has to do is smile and stay upright, as Princess Carolyn says, but honey, this might still be too much work for BoJack right now. It's later on and BoJack's at his bourbon shoot. He calls Princess Carolyn, telling her thank you for this opportunity, and thank you for being such a great manager. What do you want, BoJack? Something feels off. But she's too busy at that moment being a boss woman and getting shit done. So they'll have to carry on that discussion another time, and they do, and yeah, you'll find out why. Later on, Princess Carolyn gets to her office, and it turns out there's a merger happening, and this is where we meet Vanessa Gecko. Oh my gosh, no, Gecko, oh, wow. So, it seems they're enemies, or are they? I'm not too sure, at least right now. It's kind of like I hate you on the low and you hate me on the low, but nobody's gonna acknowledge it, so let's just make sly jabs at each other. Okay. Hey, bestie. Or is this all in Princess Carolyn's head because she's jealous of Vanessa Gecko? In the sense that Vanessa Gecko seems to be handling life a lot better, or at least from Princess Carolyn's perception. Does this knowledge breed some sort of resentment in her heart, skewing her perception of reality? Anyways, who cares? That's the least of her worries right now. She might be getting fired because of this merger for all she knows. Todd later calls Princess Carolyn, letting her know that BoJack's no longer at the shoot. Oh, god damn it, BoJack, not again. Where on earth could he have gone? But hey, at least Todd can replace him on set. However, that may be a decision they will soon regret. Yeah, it seems like you should never give Todd any power at all because he becomes a maniacal, power-hungry maniac. But let's put that subplot aside for now and carry on with BoJack and Princess Carolyn. BoJack ends up going to Princess Carolyn's office. Now you may be wondering why. Why would you do that, BoJack? You're meant to be on set right now. Oh, it's only BoJack trying to get Princess Carolyn back for the 50 billionth time. Hopefully Princess Carolyn doesn't fall for it. You see, BoJack now knows he currently doesn't have a chance with Diane. So what's the next best thing? Oh, good old Reliable, the person that he always goes to when things go wrong. Princess Carolyn's very aware of this. She says it right to him. BoJack uses her for comfort in hard times to make himself feel better, a sort of cushion to more easily sail through the rough times of his life. He manipulates her with these kind words, these words of affection, words that he doesn't even mean, gestures to her with kind actions, only to immediately drop her again like a sack of rocks when he no longer has use for her. And he each time she tries to resist, she tells herself that it's only ever going to end the same way. She knows it deep down each and every single time. But BoJack has a hold on her. A hold, a grip so tight and it won't let go. At least not until Princess Carolyn can figure out what it is exactly that keeps bringing her back and finally free herself from these figurative chains. As for now, Princess Carolyn is telling BoJack, no BoJack, no more. You're not going to do this to me again, but BoJack can't take no for an answer. Yeah, that's not a good personality trait, BoJack. She said no. And plus she was his manager. Being his manager and being his girlfriend just wouldn't work out. Now, believing that this was all that was holding her back, BoJack does something absolutely unfathomably stupid and just downright idiotic. He fires her. Wow, I'm sure this will make her love you. As well as firing her, he hires Vanessa Gecko, her arch nemesis. Remember that whole subplot with the birds that took pictures of BoJack and Sarah Lynn doing the deed? Well, that comes into play right now because they come into the office of Vanessa Gecko, or Princess Carolyn, or both of them because they're sharing an office. And they're making demands. This is a threat. Either they get what they want or these pictures get leaked. But hey, I guess since Princess Carolyn is no longer BoJack's manager, she doesn't have to deal with this and she finds this funny. See how you like it, Vanessa Gecko. Of course, I imagine this would be the start of a greater storyline, a big storyline, displaying the consequences of BoJack's actions, but that doesn't quite happen. But don't you worry, that will still come back to bite BoJack in the future. If not this season, definitely in a season to come. As for now, that whole subplot takes an abrupt halt and ends quite anticlimactically. I mean, we do get a bit of a joke, which I did find quite funny, but in the moment of watching this for the first time, of course, I expected a bit more. But like I said, more will come.
But you had a permit, right?
What's that?
Oh, also, extortion can be prosecuted as a Class E felony. That's 4 years in prison, easy. And when you throw in the murder of Tupac Shakur...
We didn't do that.
Yeah, you can't pin that on us.
Well, someone's got to take the fall.
After Vanessa Gecko girl busting the shit out of that situation, of course Princess Carolyn's a bit annoyed. I mean, she had that resolved without even breaking a sweat, and Princess Carolyn had assumed that this would at least stump her a tiny bit, but she was wrong. This whole situation is starting to get really aggravating for Princess Carolyn. She doesn't even have her assistant anymore because that's been taken away as well by Vanessa Gecko, you evil bitch. Sorry. But hey, at least she gets an intern that seems very competent and not at all like he'd be a total inconvenience every single moment of every single day of every single minute. What's that mean? Meet Charlie Witherspoon, Princess Carolyn's new assistant, a true personification of intelligence and smarts and a willfulness to succeed, and not at all incompetent with everything and clumsy and likely to be more of a constant inconvenience. Yay. Princess Carolyn's truly going through it. Nobody seems to respect her. BoJack constantly uses her. Her boss doesn't seem to give two shits about her and the effort that she's making in the company. And Vanessa Gecko just seems to have it all easy. And here comes BoJack again, not realizing that no means bloody no. Pressuring Princess Carolyn to go on a little date with him. Just a tiny one. Because of BoJack's actions that day, things are being ruined for Princess Carolyn, and BoJack doesn't even care, despite her emphatically telling him how much of a negative effect he's having on her life. But oh no, that's not going to stop BoJack getting what he wants, because at the end of the day, all that matters is him. At least in his warped head. Sadly, the walls eventually cave and Princess Carolyn gives in to his constant pestering and she goes on a little date with him. Perhaps this will be the time he changes. Perhaps this will be the time he becomes the man I know he can be. No, Princess Carolyn, when will you learn? Unfortunately, there's nothing I can do given that she can't hear me and she's a cartoon and this is not real. But what I can do is look in disdain while shaking my head and releasing a huge sigh of disappointment. Anyways, later on they're at the date. Woo, fun times, yay. I don't know how BoJack does it, but he pulls off the charms and he's getting Princess Carolyn back into that mindset, the mindset where she's so in love, so infatuated, so deeply obsessed with him. You can tell she's quickly sinking into that hole, a hole that is only concerned about BoJack Horseman. Princess Carolyn, escape! She quickly heads to the toilet to freshen up. I guess they're gonna be going home and getting frisky. Princess Carolyn, no! But her moments of joy are interrupted by Vanessa Gecko, who calls her smugly, letting her know that she's taken her clients that Princess Carolyn had been banking on. All her troubles for that day, the reason she wasn't even able to get to her meeting earlier on, which Vanessa Gecko also happened to take control over, all stemmed from BoJack being an absolute nuisance. But Princess Carolyn just isn't seeing it, or she is seeing it, but she's refusing to let BoJack go. To put her foot down and tell him no. I mean, fuck, call the police if he doesn't want to accept it. But of course, BoJack feels so confident that he can always get her, because he always has in the past. In the midst of Princess Carolyn being in the toilet having her discussion, BoJack gets a call from Herb Kazaz. Yeah. It was at the end of episode 5 that BoJack had called Herb, hoping that they could have a conversation, hopefully hash things out, about how their friendship came to an unsavory end. But Herb Kazaz said, "Nobody, I'm calling you to let you know if you want to talk, you better come and meet me in person." Damn, Herb's really about that life. This call really dampens BoJack's mood, and he's sent right back into reality, no longer wishing to participate in the game that he and Princess Carolyn are playing, a game that he continuously drags her right back into. Back to the toilet with Princess Carolyn, she's telling herself, you know what, I don't care. I don't care that today has been an awful day. Do you know why? Because I have BoJack and I'm gonna make sure that I'm happy. I'm gonna make myself happy. I'm not gonna let myself be sad. She leaves the toilet with enthusiasm in her heart, because at least she's still going to have an amazing time with BoJack, right? Isn't that just her luck? Just as BoJack has finally sucked her back into his world, he drops her again like a sack of dirt on the floor. And as much as she is also doing this to herself, as much as she knows BoJack will never be the right person for her, as much as it aggravates me that she keeps on letting him do this to her, I can't help but feel so sorry for her. And the evening comes to an end there. BoJack tells her, you were right. I don't love you and you don't love me. Two lonely people deep down who you could say have trauma bonded together, and despite their incompatibilities, just can't seem to let each other go. Two lonely people trying to be less lonely together. But BoJack, this is all your fault. You keep on doing this. You keep on breaking her heart. You keep on bringing her back in just to destroy her. Why? Alright, I'll calm down. The absolute plonker doesn't even give her a ride back home. This scene really aggravated me and made me want to punch him in the face. But this was it. This was the last time Princess Carolyn was going to fall for it. She's going to be the girl boss she knows she can be. She don't need no man, and she certainly don't need BoJack of all people. No more. She wasn't going to fall for his tricks anymore. At least that's what she's trying to tell herself, but we'll see how long she can resist the imperceivable charms of BoJack. Like seriously, what does she see in him? Please, let me know. It's the day after and BoJack has the nerve to call Princess Carolyn asking her to please find him a job. You haven't done enough, BoJack? You still need her, you selfish goon? He seems to have forgotten that he's fired her. But this is exactly what I mean. BoJack knows that he has Princess Carolyn right to the tips of his fingers. He knows that whenever he needs her, she'll be there for him. And he uses that and abuses that and seems to care absolutely minimal about her at all, if anything. Well, anyways, like I said, Princess Carolyn is no longer his manager, so BoJack asks her to let Vanessa Gecko know. And what do you know? Vanessa Gecko has absolutely no intentions to be BoJack's manager anymore, because guess what? He's a terrible client, and she's got bigger fish to fry. Princess Carolyn's boss essentially says, good riddance, he was basically a waste of time, and I want to wipe our hands clean of this guy. But even here, despite everything, Princess Carolyn still fights for BoJack. Still stands by his side, and she lets her boss know, no, I can get BoJack a role in a film. Please just don't drop him. I can do this. And she goes through the effort, and I mean a lot of effort. Insurmountable effort, considering this is a person who deserves nothing from her. And she does what she can to find BoJack a job. After all the tireless stress, she did this for BoJack. Things really turned around quickly. Princess Carolyn got BoJack a role in a movie, and Vanessa Gecko fudged up her whole situation that initially belonged to Princess Carolyn, so karma bitch. So hey, at least things are looking up, right? She calls BoJack letting him know the good news. She got him a job. She did exactly as he asked. This was what he wanted, right? Once again, BoJack just throws that shit right back in her face without a second thought. However, it wasn't exactly as simple as that, because BoJack had gone through a bit of a rough day, should we say, but we'll see all that in the next episode. The call that Princess Carolyn had just made to him took place right after his visit with Herb Kazaz. So it's safe to say that visit had sunken his mood for the rest of the day. It's just frustrating that Princess Carolyn has to be at the receiving end of this. Once again, she sits in her office like many other times in her life, unappreciated, undervalued, and unloved. She stands up and gazes out the window,
looking almost defeated, profoundly hopeless in a world that continues to batter her down. A world that just doesn't seem to want to give her a break. All of a sudden, she gets a notification from her phone. It's her birthday, and she's turned 40, but there's no one there. There she is in her office, working so hard. And for what? For people not to give a damn, for people not to care, for those who she helped so much to not even remember her birthday. What's she doing this for? Hey, but good news on Todd though, he's not on billboards, hooray! I mean, things did go a bit topsy-turvy with him. He really did let the power get to his head, Jesus. And oh yeah, I think he got drunk as well. Todd, that's meant to be a prop drink, did you add alcohol to it, jeez? But of course, Princess Carolyn was there to give him some words of motivation after all. She is also his manager now. And it was because of her having to go to Todd that she missed her interview that Vanessa Gecko ended up taking over. So yeah, BoJack is the cause of all of this. Blame BoJack, everybody point fingers and say BoJack bad. Anyways, let's move to the next episode. Hey, welcome to episode 8. We're gonna talk about Mr. BoJack. Hey, what's your name? His name is Mr. BoJack. This episode's a throwback. Gonna be about Herb Kiss Ass. BoJack's gonna kiss ass. Welcome to episode 8. Here we are in episode 8, and this is from the perspective of BoJack, and what took place on the day before he had received a call from Princess Carolyn during the evening about the fact that she got him a role in a movie, but then he turned down in the last episode. It wasn't that long ago, I hope you remember. BoJack brings Diane along as some sort of buffer between him and Herb Kazaz. They've not seen each other in a very long time, and yes, BoJack is very fearful because he knows he did Herb Kazaz wrong, but we'll get into that more very shortly. Todd also happens to be there as well because, you know, yay, Todd, adventure. What does Todd do in his spare time? Diane tries to come to grasp with exactly what happened between BoJack and his once very close friend, asking BoJack probing questions about their history, and BoJack actually opens up, and thus the flashback begins. We are in the 80s, 80s background music. The year that this currently is. 80s background music. We are 80s background in music. The 80s. 80s background music. The year that this currently is. 80s background music. Welcome to the 80s, a flashback into BoJack's life when he's now friends with Herb Kazaz, and he's also friends with a woman called Charlotte. Things are looking great and life seems to be on the up and up. BoJack's stand-up comedy is doing well. The three of them formed a spectacular trio friendship group, and this was the start of something phenomenal. Now, Charlotte is someone we'll definitely be talking about more in the future, and she has a big part to play in BoJack's story throughout the series. And oh boy, are some of the storylines interesting and absolutely diabolical to even think about. I'm not looking forward to that episode in season 2, you know which. Oh yeah, let me quickly mention that Charlotte is Herb Kazaz's boyfriend. So BoJack is somewhat of a third wheel in this relationship. However, like Charlotte says, how can you ride a tricycle without the third wheel? And like BoJack said, that would just make it a bicycle. Things were just going really well. Their friendship was strong, they were both improving in their stand-up game, and surely opportunities were just by the horizon. One really interesting detail that I noticed is that in this flashback, after BoJack and Herb have now been friends for however long, BoJack states that he gets drunk very quickly. However, in a prior flashback with BoJack and Herb Kazaz, BoJack stated that he didn't drink at all. Remember that saying, you are who you surround yourself with? And oftentimes the people you surround yourself with, their habits can rub off on you, even if it's a very slow and unnoticeable process. BoJack went into the game sober, but of course, with the environment that he's constantly in, the people that he constantly surrounds himself with, and the industry that he wants to break into, it slowly chipped away at that sobriety, and now the addiction is likely creeping up on him slowly and unnoticeably. Because at this point, BoJack still states he gets drunk very quickly, but the BoJack that we know now in current day, oh no, he can handle his alcohol for sure. So that just shows you the progression, or should I say the deterioration of BoJack's ability to refrain from alcohol. It was a steady process, a process that started with his introduction to Herb Kazaz. Now of course I'm not saying Herb Kazaz is the reason he's an alcoholic right now, simply saying the world that he so desperately wanted to get into, a world full of drugs and alcohol and people constantly trying to cope, it was only a matter of time. It changed BoJack from being an individual who once sought a clear head to now being a person who probably can't even function with a sober mind. While things definitely seem to be getting better, at least career-wise, for BoJack, Herb Kazaz and Charlotte, there was still the issue of the finances, because yeah, money wasn't exactly coming in and they were probably living paycheck to paycheck, or whatever comedians live on, I don't know. I know it's a rough career choice. I mean, the boy BoJack was even trying to steal food just to take home, and it was supposedly gonna last them a month.
But while BoJack still lacked a lot of confidence in himself, something that still remains with him even till current day, a big insecurity that keeps on popping up is his insecurity about his weight and getting fat. It will definitely be quite interesting to deep dive into the mind of BoJack when it comes to food and how he believes other people perceive him and his insecurities about his looks in the future, because that is one of BoJack's main insecurities. Charlotte's here to give BoJack a sense of motivation. She's confident that BoJack will make it into Hollywood, make it into stardom, but her fear is about what Hollywood will do to him. How will it change him? And then she makes this really insightful and introspective analogy about this tar pit. She points out and says, Hollywood is like this tar pit. Before you know it, you're already sinking and it's too late. There are so many ways that could be depicted, that could be analyzed, that could be torn apart into numerous catalogs of interpretations, and I really adore that the writers of this show, their capability to express such nuance with words, captivate such imagery with short sentences. It's genuinely something to behold, and for a show that with quick passing one may misidentify as just a mere silly comedy animated cartoon show with anthropomorphic animals, this show hits so deep and has such a great sense of realism to it. This tar pit analogy will come back to visit us in season 2, so stick around, we'll hear more about it. This Charlotte woman's a bit of a mystery and someone that we don't really get to properly know until season 2. But as for now, she makes her exit as quickly as she made her entrance, because she's about to move to Maine, try and start a new life, do something different, escape the rat race of the land of entertainment. Before she does make her exit though, it's clear to see that there was some sort of chemistry, or should I say attraction, at least from Charlotte towards BoJack, because she asks him if her and Herb had never gotten together, would BoJack have ever asked her out? But she doesn't think so because she believes BoJack to be a coward, and she says this right to him, like Jesus, talk about blunt. But her assumption of his cowardice will ring true, because that is, through his many actions, a core part of who he is. A coward. Fast forward a tiny bit more into the 80s, Herb has his TV pitch approved. This is a huge step and a defining moment in his career. And unbeknownst to BoJack, it's a defining moment in his career as well. Because Herb wasn't about to go on this journey of success on his own. No, he was taking his good friend BoJack with him. And it's from here, from this moment, that things just start to go down. And we the viewers are just left to spectate, as their once strong trio friend group has now been reduced to 2, and the friendship of 2 is now further tested by the ups and downs of Hollywood and the effects it can have on people, the way it changes them. Or perhaps the way it just brings out their true self. BoJack was changing day by day, by the minute becoming more inconsiderate, more selfish, more unbearable, more frustrating to work with, seemingly completely unappreciative about the luxury he has now, the rise of his narcissistic tendencies, and lack of consideration of anybody else other than himself. The start of the formation of the BoJack Horseman we know of today. Hollywood had a grip on him, a grip that it wouldn't let go of. It changed him. No, he changed in it. And there's a difference. But career-wise, BoJack is doing absolutely astronomically well. Things are going perfectly. This opportunity that Herb Kazaz had given him had blossomed into something beyond BoJack's wildest dreams. However, I'm not sure his younger self would appreciate how much of a twat he's become. The friendship that he has with Herb is now on thin ice, as Herb grows ever more tired of BoJack's shenanigans, of his selfishness, and the fact that the entire crew seems to have to walk on eggshells around him. The person that believed in BoJack, that helped BoJack, that guided him, that brought him to the place where he is at right now, that elevated him in the entertainment world and brought him the opportunity of horsing around, he now treats with disrespect and pure arrogance. Somebody slap this guy, he deserves it. BoJack gets a call from his manager at this point, and you won't believe it. At this point, Princess Carolyn was the assistant to the current manager that BoJack has in the 80s. So there's absolutely no doubting that she's definitely climbed the ranks, but I'm sure she would have hoped that she'd be further up the line in the hierarchy 20 years later. But hey, that's telling of the realities of life. Sometimes you go through things expecting things to go a certain way, but they just don't happen the way you think. And oftentimes that will be the case. It's about being able to adjust and handle certain situations with a cool head. If there's anything Princess Carolyn is, it's determined, and she'll find a way to land on her feet. The call's about a movie called Secretariat being made. Remember Secretariat, BoJack's childhood hero, the person he looked up to so gravely as a little kid? A symbol of hope to BoJack in his times of solace and misery, in his times of loneliness, almost a sort of father figure to him, given that his actual father only seemed to treat him with discontent and abuse. Later on, while BoJack is at home, he's watching TV, and on the news it turns out there's been a scandal involving Herb Kazaz. And what this situation leads to will be the final nail in the coffin between the friendship of BoJack and Herb Kazaz. You see, Herb Kazaz got exposed for public indecency, and of course he's in charge of a family TV show, so that's pretty bad for the public image of the show. However, the main crux of the controversy is less about the fact that he got exposed for public indecency, but more so that he got exposed for public indecency with another man. You see, this was the 80s and things were far, far less inclusive as they are right now. So yeah, the thought that a producer of a family show is exposed for being publicly indecent with a woman would already be bad enough in terms of the financial effect it might have on the show as well as the negative publicity, but the fact that it was a man in a time where homophobia was far more rampant, yeah, things definitely weren't looking good. This would lead to riots and protests, a conservative uprising against Herb Kazaz ordering that he should be taken off the show. BoJack is at a loss for words. It's not long before the studio execs will be looking to throw Herb to the curb. But before Herb is pushed out of the very project he created, he goes to BoJack one last time. He pleads to BoJack, asking BoJack to reminisce on the days of their past when they were close, when their bond was tighter than ever, to help him out of this situation, because if he stated he was against the firing of Herb Kazaz, then they'd have no choice but to keep Herb on. Because without BoJack, there'd be no horsing around. But BoJack isn't sure. He's not sure how this will work. Will this possibly affect his chances of staying on the show? Will they replace him? Will this negatively affect his career? How much is he truly willing to sacrifice for Herb Kazaz? This is a chance for BoJack to prove Charlotte wrong, that he isn't a coward. To stand up for one of the few people who's actually really cared about him. The person who helped him with his comedy. The person who brought him to where he is. The person who believed in him. For that moment, BoJack, remembering how good Herb had been to him, says he will help, that he will come to his defense. But when that time comes, when BoJack is called, things don't go quite as planned. In the end, BoJack couldn't risk losing what he had. And yes, I do believe a small part of him genuinely did want to try, but then he was overcome with the fears of what would happen if he no longer had the security of horsing around, so he couldn't do it.
I already know what you think, because I have conversations like this one 5 times a day. I know who you are, and I know you've already made your decision, but if you want to surprise me, now's the time to do it. That's what I thought.
Some may say yes, he was too much of a coward to come to the defense of his close friend. But others may be fully understanding of the fact that both Herb and BoJack losing their jobs would not benefit anyone. And while it might have been morally uplifting to see BoJack come to Herb's defense, because of how cutthroat the entertainment industry is, it's understandable how fears of not being able to bounce back if he was let loose from horsing around would be rather prevalent in his mind. So whilst I do wish that BoJack had taken that step, had been brave, to at least make a valiant effort in defense of his friend, I do understand that a majority of people being put in that situation would do the same thing. And it seems rather evident that BoJack does express a great sense of guilt. Back to current day, and BoJack and Diane and Todd have finally arrived at Herb's house. And oh boy, is it a massive mansion. Clearly Herb's been doing absolutely fantastic, even after losing his job on horsing around. At first you believe things are going to be tense between them, but no, they seem to get along just fine, as if they had never stopped being friends. The banter is witty, back and forth, there's laughter, there's joy. It seems like nothing can go wrong at this point. But even with this, there's still this faint sense of tension, simply awaiting to pounce at any point. You can feel it. So with all this jovial banter aside, after Herb and BoJack are able to talk and catch up a bit, they decide to part ways again. Surely not though. There's still so much to be said. You can tell, you can feel that BoJack has more to say. And Herb is yet to fully express his emotions about how their friendship came to an end. Diane tells BoJack that if there's anything he feels he needs to tell Herb, he better do it, because Herb might not be around for too much longer. The cancer is eating away at him. You can see it by his face, it looks gauntly Like any moment he might be no more. BoJack decides that she's right. He heads back indoors and finally opens up to her, tries his best to make amends, apologizes for how he treated Herb, for essentially abandoning him. But Herb was not going to accept this apology. He doesn't believe BoJack deserves his forgiveness. What had hurt Herb the most was not the fact that BoJack wasn't able to save his job and horsing around, no. It was the fact that after that, he completely abandoned Herb, left him in the dust, forgot about him, in times where he needed a friend the most. One of the few people who truly cared about him, who truly helped him, who truly wanted him to succeed. He just left behind like it was nothing. So Herb doesn't think he deserves that feeling of relief, the weight of the guilt being eased off his body. Herb doesn't think he deserves that, and he's not going to give him that satisfaction. He's happy dying, knowing that he did not forgive BoJack Horseman. Before BoJack is about to leave, Herb ends up telling him this.
You know what your problem is? You want to think of yourself as the good guy. Well, I know you better than anyone, and I can tell you that you're not. In fact, you'd probably sleep a lot better at night if you just admitted to yourself that you're a selfish goddamn coward who takes whatever he wants and doesn't give a shit about who he hurts. That's you.
As much as BoJack would like to detest against this, would fight against this being a reality, Herb is right. Sure, BoJack feels guilt. Sure, BoJack deep down wishes he was better. Sure, BoJack is aware of his shortcomings, but at the end of the day, it's your actions that make you who you are. And BoJack's actions say one thing. He's not a good person. It was on the car ride back home that we have that conversation from the last episode with BoJack and Princess Carolyn, where BoJack turns down any job opportunities because, of course, he's in a devastated mental space because of all the shit that just happened between him and Herb. On the way back, BoJack has a panic attack. His heart is beating out of his chest. He doesn't know what to do. The words of Herb likely ringing back and forth in his head on repeat. Are the things Herb said true? BoJack stops at the side of the road. He gets out of his car, and he's able to slowly calm himself down. Slowly, he drifts into a mental space of desolateness, reality becoming more and more bleak by the second. But Diane comes to him and tells him she thinks what he did was brave, even letting him know that if he doesn't want this in the biography, she won't put it in. But BoJack, now at a point where he feels nothing really matters, tells her it's okay. He no longer cares what people think about him. But as much as he may think that right now, that is still very far from the truth. It was at this point that BoJack thinks it's a smart idea to try and kiss Diane. Why? Why would you do this, BoJack? Why? Oh boy, has shit just turned awkward. No words are exchanged. Instead, Diane just pulls away and walks back slowly, looking confused and baffled. And I don't blame you, Diane. I don't blame you at all. There goes BoJack again, trying to find some sort of comfort in this time of tumultuous stress. A form of comfort in Diane. Completely ignoring the bigger picture of his inner turmoil and stuff that needs to be worked out within himself. Instead, he has a tendency of using emotional and sexual intimacy with women as a sort of crutch. For example, the way that he treats Princess Carolyn, then discards her the millisecond he no longer finds use in her. Episode 9. So yeah, brand new episode, a lot happens, let's talk about it. Remember a few seconds ago how I told you that BoJack kissed Diane in the last episode? Well, they're now driving back home and shit is awkward. Oh my god, I can feel the tension in my bones. It don't feel too nice, BoJack, but this is your fault. They're both small talking away, trying to convince each other that nothing just happened. Oh, we're friends. Yeah, let's just be friends and
continue to be friends. Yeah, that's it. Nothing's weird. Let's just be friends. I'm getting married, BoJack. Do you remember that?
But no, Diane can't deal with it. The shit is just too uncomfortable. She ends up walking on the fucking highway and running away from this horrible situation. I don't blame you.
There's so much to talk about when it comes to this episode. Where on earth do I start? Well, let's talk about, first of all, Princess Carolyn's new man.
Meet Mr. Vincent. What is clearly 3 children stacked on top of each other in a bloody trench coat. But this show has manipulated and gaslit me to the point where I'm not even sure if it's actually true. Is he just a man that looks like a kid with a weird body? Or is it actually 3 children stacked on top of each other in a trench coat? I don't know. I guess we'll find out more in the future. As for right now, what is going on? Princess Carolyn, surely you can do better. Is this your way to get back at BoJack? It seems like it is. And I get it, the whole shtick of BoJack being the only person that's able to notice that this is clearly not an actual man. In a sense, BoJack is a representation of us as viewers wondering what on earth is happening. How is no one else seeing this? Or let's go into theory land. Perhaps we are seeing things through the lens of BoJack Horseman, and this is simply just BoJack's biases and jealousy personified, creating this image of how BoJack sees Vincent in his head, a departure from actual reality. Yeah, no, it's just 3 kids in a bloody trench coat. A lot really happens in this episode. Let's start off with BoJack trying to sabotage Diane and Mr. Peanut Butter's wedding. Of course, BoJack can't just let it be, he has to ruin it. What else would you expect? Even hiring Todd on this new mission of deceit and betrayal. Whatever it takes, he aims to put an end to this wedding. Just very quickly again, back to the whole Princess Carolyn and Vincent thing. I still find that so weird. Am I wrong? Am I the only one that thinks that? Alright, I'll leave it alone for now. BoJack sets Todd's first task as breaking into his house. By he's, I mean Mr. Peanut Butter. To plant some incriminating evidence into his laptop. Evidence that supposedly would make Mr. Peanut Butter look very bad. BoJack, you really have stooped so low. All this in hopes to get Diane a complete disregard of Mr. Peanut Butter's life and how your actions are absolutely detrimental to his future. You just don't care. You just want to get what you want to get, and that's it to you, isn't it? You sick bastard. But hey, that plan doesn't work out too well because Mr. Peanut Butter literally walks in the second Todd breaks into his house. But Mr. Peanut Butter is not exactly the smartest in the room, so he doesn't immediately clock on that something really dodgy is going on here. What he does do instead is hire Todd as his personal driver since he needs one. And we get to see such a cute journey, a growth of friendship between Todd and Mr. Peanut Butter. It's actually kind of adorable. They're literally perfect for each other. Those two are BFFs in the making. Todd already didn't really want to take part in BoJack's plans, but felt pressure to, especially since BoJack's letting him live with him for free. But now that he's starting to grow a friendship with Mr. Peanut Butter, the guilt really starts to hit him. And the thing is, Todd is not like BoJack. Todd actually has quite a heart. Todd's good conscience actually outweighs his negative one. And the conniving plans that BoJack sets up for him to go through in order to try and dismantle the relationship between Mr. Peanut Butter and Diane, Todd ends up not doing because he has a heart. Todd's a good guy. And BoJack, on the other hand, yikes, that's a far more difficult conversation. Ooh, but trust me when I say BoJack Horseman was determined, and I mean thoroughly determined. He even gets character actor Margot Martindale to come back and help him with a whole new scheme in order to get this plan accomplished. It was going to be a robbery. She was going to burst in and steal the ring, and hopefully this would cause some sort of conflict. Okay, this is clearly a cry for help, BoJack. Get some help. Get some therapy. You need it. Each of these foolish attempts only working against BoJack's plans. Not only was the love between Diane and Mr. Peanut Butter growing stronger by the minute, the wedding that was meant to be happening next year, it turns out that's now going to happen in a month's time instead, because in this really sweet scene of Mr. Peanut Butter comforting Diane and being really understanding and compassionate about the stresses that she's going through, her worries and her fears about going through with this wedding, a wedding that she'd have to wait a year to actually experience, and the pressure building up. There was just so much on her mind, and Mr. Peanut Butter says, you know what, fuck having a big wedding, we don't need it. We can have a wedding next month, just small, between me and you and the very closest people we know. That's exactly what Diane wants. She doesn't care about the big gestures, the big weddings, the big parties. She prefers the more intimate moments. This was honestly such a sweet moment between these two characters, and you could really just feel the chemistry between them. There are so many times, so many examples of ways they just do not work for each other, but then you have scenes like this that just remind you about the nuance of life and relationships and pretty much everything. It's never just black and white. At least not most of the time.
Oh, they're going to be getting married even sooner? And this was brought about by BoJack Horseman's failed attempt at trying to get them to call off the wedding?
Yeah, BoJack, you kind of messed this up, didn't you? I'm glad you did. But yeah, it was somewhat therapeutic seeing BoJack's plans being thrown right back at his face. You deserve it, you biatch. Everything is just going wrong for him. Todd is no longer on his side and refuses to help him dismantle the love between Diane and Mr. Peanut Butter. His plans crumbled into absolute nothingness. Now, instead of them getting married next year, they're going to be getting married by the end of the bloody week. Even character actor Margot Martindale is enthused and happy for Mr. Peanut Butter and Diane because she sees the true love, the true care that they have for each other. But BoJack keeps on trying to grasp at anything to put his nightmare to an end. Throughout this episode, the foundation of friendship between Todd and Mr. Peanut Butter has grown to a gargantuan scale. In a multitude of ways, they're very similar to each other, both of them not exactly being the smartest, but having rather pure hearts, at least in the sense of they don't intend to hurt people. They both try to look at life optimistically, and they both have kind souls. And whilst they are both flawed like anybody is, they were truly destined to be friends. There was this fantastically done scene with Mr. Peanut Butter coming clean to Todd about his fears about entering this relationship, this marriage, because he doesn't want to hurt Diane, he doesn't want to break her heart, he doesn't want anything bad to happen to Diane. He truly loves Diane, and he's just happy Todd is there to listen to him. He appreciates Todd, something that Todd is not very used to. It was at this exact moment that I know Todd finally fully realized in the episode that there was no chance he was going to help BoJack ruin Mr. Peanut Butter's wedding. I mean, fuck, in the short time he's known Mr. Peanut Butter has treated him far nicer than BoJack ever has. Before we close this episode off, remember the whole rock opera thing? Yeah, the thing that BoJack sabotaged for Todd. Through the episode, we were getting hints that perhaps Todd would find out through a receipt that was under the couch. I was like, oh my god. Todd's gonna find out. Todd's going to find out. He's gonna find this receipt and it's gonna be dead set evidence. But like this show often likes to do, our expectations were subverted. And guess how he finds out instead? After going through a nonsensical breakdown, linking one irrelevant shit to another irrelevant shit. All stemming from the fact that he realized Margot Martindale helped BoJack with his plan to ruin Mr. Peanut Butter's wedding. And the fact that it was character actor Margot Martindale that led to him noticing that the game he was addicted to was on sale. So after all this is done, this stupid analysis is done, Todd comes to the conclusion, oh my god, BoJack the sly bastard. He put me in line sight to buy that game so I'd get addicted so he could destroy my rock opera. Honestly, I'm actually fucking impressed. That's some Batman level investigation. Bravo, Todd. But you can see in this moment, this really broke him. At first it started off with anger, but swiftly turned into absolute sadness. But hey, the episode is finally coming to an end and Mr. Peanut Butter and Diane are finally getting married. Even still to this moment, BoJack is still grasping, hoping that he'll find something to be able to put this to an end, but before BoJack goes to the wedding and does something he'll absolutely regret, knowing BoJack actually he probably wouldn't regret it, he'd be more than happy sabotaging this relationship, but before BoJack does anything really stupid, Todd knocks some sense into him and gives him an absolute talking to. BoJack, you absolute donkey, stop trying to mess with other people's lives. Just because you're miserable, just because you have disdain for your own self, doesn't mean you have to sabotage everything for everybody else. Okay, he didn't say that exactly, I did put in some words there, but that's the gist. Oh, and this was absolutely sublime to see Todd standing up for himself against BoJack's tyranny. At this point, of course, Todd is now aware of what BoJack did to him, how he destroyed his rock opera. I will state once again that Todd can't fully blame BoJack because at the end of the day, he's the one that couldn't control himself. But like I said before, BoJack facilitated this. Todd is keeping this newly discovered information to himself, but you can tell it weighs heavy on his heart. The wedding between Diane and Mr. Peanut Butter goes through without a hitch. They both give amazing, heartfelt speeches. Diane, despite having fears of the future and what it holds, the uncertainty of how this marriage will go, she's willing and wants to take this chance with Mr. Peanut Butter. In this very moment, their love for each other is true, and BoJack has to witness it all.
At least he's got Vincent there to keep him company. Vincent's apparently a very good listener.
Is he even old enough to talk?
BoJack comes clean about one thing. I mean, yeah, Vincent is clearly absolutely 3 kids in a bloody trench coat. How is nobody seen? I'm still annoyed. This is weird. I'm sorry. But anyways, he comes clean about being slightly jealous because despite the fact that he never actually had or has any intention of wanting to date Princess Carolyn, a part of him always thought she'd be there. She'd be an option that he'd always be able to. So the mere fact that that isn't an option for him right now, I guess is another jab to his fragile ego, knowing that he doesn't even have Princess Carolyn to fall back on. You create the bed in which the misery forms, and you are the one that has to lie in it. We do get some good news for Todd though, because Mr. Peanut Butter invites him to be part of this new company that he's starting. Hooray! Todd, my friend, welcome to PB Living. So yeah, that's some pretty good news. And it was cute. It was nice. I really like their friendship. It's awesome. On to the next episode! So today, BoJack's on the set of a film, and guess who he's playing? Mr. Peanut Butter. How ironic, the person he clearly detests the most, the person who has the girl he seems to be in love with. Now he's playing him in a movie? You couldn't have written this out. Well, technically you could, because this was written out. Shut up, you understood what I meant. Oh, and this movie's a big deal. They even have a Ryan Seacrest type there to interview them. I bet you're wondering, what exactly is the plot going to be about? Well, picture this. Mr. Peanut Butter stealing the D from the Hollywood sign, because clearly that actually happened and it wasn't actually BoJack, to proclaim his love for Diane. I know, how crazy, what an amazing plot. Yes, they literally took what they believe Mr. Peanut Butter actually did and they're making a movie out of it. How long has it been? Has it even been a couple months? God damn! I guess anything makes entertainment nowadays. But truly what merciless irony it is that BoJack is the one that plays Mr. Peanut Butter. Almost as if the universe is rubbing salt on the wound while laughing maniacally. But BoJack's career is only on its way down and he needs a role like this. After all, it's got Quentin Tarantino, yes. Quentin Tarantino, clearly a spoof on Quentin Tarantino. It seems BoJack has no choice but to scuff up his pride and do this project for the sake of his dwindling career. BoJack comes face to face with Diane. It's awkward, uncomfortable. I can feel the seething tension. I feel it in my bones. My bones are quivering. Somebody help me. Diane has clearly been undertaking any opportunity she has to avoid BoJack Horseman. In the last episode, she let BoJack know that she thinks she has everything she needs to write this book on him. Also letting him know, hey, mate, you made shit awkward. I don't really want to talk to yous. You're a bitch. She didn't say that long, but whatever. Simply put, she just didn't know how to continue this friendship without shit just feeling uncomfortable and wooden and disingenuous. But it seems it's been a couple months since BoJack attempted to kiss her, so she's had some time to at least overcome it. So things aren't quite as awkward as they were in the last episode. They are able to catch up a slight bit. BoJack tells her about all his many sexual ordeals since the last time they had spoke, and Diane lets him know that she's finished the book. Well, at least she's got a draft. But of course, she is tremendously nervous, heart pounding. This is a big deal for her, and will be her biggest career move. On top of that, worrying about what BoJack will think about it, how it will be received. It's safe to say her anxiety levels right now are probably through the roof. BoJack ends up reading this draft later in the episode, and his reaction is, well, we'll get to that. But yeah, BoJack's not having a great time with this role. Mr. Peanut Butter's been a pain in his ass, giving him instructions about minute things that BoJack is just absolutely fed up about, like the pivotal importance of him wearing a V-neck top as opposed to a crew neck. Todd seems to be trying to sabotage his role. He somehow has input in this. For whatever reason, Quentin Tarantino just happens to like him a lot. I don't know why. I guess they just hit it off. I mean, Todd is very likable, so I guess it makes sense. It's rather humorous when you just think that Todd, despite his lack of qualification and expertise in many areas, he still manages to get all these extravagant jobs. Kind of reminds me of Homer Simpson if you think about it. Through the episode, BoJack's roles keep on changing, all said changes being inspired by Todd. But BoJack starts to get the hint. Oh no.
Todd has figured it out, that he's a complete bastardly arsehole. And it has BoJack worried. We've got bloody Naomi Watts in the mix. She's playing the role of Diane in this film. But she's no mere actor, no, she wants to get into the skin of Diane. Okay, not literally, but she wants to really embody the character of Diane, who she is, the ins and outs. She's a artiste, after all. It's not just acting. It's art. In the process of her talking to Diane, trying to get to know Diane more, trying to understand who exactly Diane is as a person, to be able to make this character of hers more sincere, Diane opens up about how much of a great time how amazing of a day it was, and how she now fears that no other day will live up to that. Diane very much strikes me as somebody who's constantly looking for something bigger, a fear of missing out in a sense, someone who is constantly living in the future instead of living in the present, and appreciating what they have around them, always worried about what they're missing out on. These fears seem to frequently occupy her mind, and there'll be more episodes that really dive further into this. Remember when I said Quentin Tarantino really likes Todd? Yeah, he really likes Todd. Todd inspires him. Todd is his protege. I swear, Todd must have some sort of superpowers of likability. I wish I could get a job this easy. Changes to the scripts have been made. Whole plots have been changed on the spot. What is happening? And at the end of the episode, there's not even a movie anymore. But let's slow the bloody roll, mate. We'll get to that when we get to that. BoJack makes numerous attempts to try and reconnect with Todd, try and get him back on his side, but you can really feel a change, a twist, an alter in the dynamic of these two. Things are just not the same. The light in which Todd used to view BoJack in has dimmed. Now, Todd is a very forgiving person, someone with an incredibly big heart, and he will forgive BoJack. In fact, I remember the first time I'd watched this, I was surprised how quickly he did, because by the end of this episode I thought, wow, he might hold this grudge for a long time before he's cool with BoJack. But we quickly see in the next episode that he seems to have completely forgiven BoJack. But I'll say this, yes, he may quickly forgive BoJack, but he surely does not forget. And all the many times of betrayal, with the rock opera and many more to come in the future, will all stack up, evidently leading to a mounting of discontent and hatred from Todd. And there'll only be so much he can take before the branches of their friendship absolutely wither away. Halfway through the episode, now the movie's not even taking place on Earth anymore. What's going on? Todd, what are these suggestions? Do you have ulterior motives? Perhaps this is just artistic genius. Who am I to say anything? I apologize. Naomi Watts, bravo to her, is still trying her very best to get into character, whatever this character may even be at this point, and be the very best actress she can be, even given these ludicrous situations. Zoinkies, what did you say? She's having sex with BoJack? What? I really didn't see that coming. I genuinely, what's happening? What's going on? But you see, here's the thing, the sad thing. Naomi Watts is still in character, whether BoJack realizes it or not. This is her trying to get into the character of Diane, trying to understand Diane's character because of the connection she has with BoJack. I know, kinda sick, kinda weird, kinda manipulative, but hey, she's an actor. And BoJack, from this one singular sexual encounter with her, slips from liking her to infatuation to now claiming he's in love with her. Once again, further proving my statement that BoJack has a toxic pattern of trying to circumvent his emotional traumas and issues through relationships which themselves are built on a ground of toxicity, a foundation that will definitely not reap any rewards for the relationship. In fact, it will simply deteriorate it sooner or later. Unlikely sooner. But before filming is cancelled because of all the nonsensical directions Quentin Tarantino and Todd took this movie, like I said before, it doesn't even end up a movie anymore, and before BoJack finds out that Naomi doesn't give a bloody crap about him and will simply use him as a way to improve her character, BoJack was finally given an opportunity to read Diane's book. And oh boy, is it not the outcome he was expecting. You see what BoJack really meant when he told Diane, warts and all, when he told her that he wanted this biography to be a real look into his life. What he meant is he wanted people to be able to sympathize with him. He wanted people to see him how he wants to see himself. BoJack hoped this would be a book that would simply just uplift him, praise him, explain how dynamic and interesting and fascinating of a person he was. He wanted this to be an expose into the awesomeness of BoJack Horseman. But that's not the book Diane was writing. What Diane was writing was a profound, nuanced look into the man that is BoJack Horseman. A book that shed a light into the complexities of his mind. A book about his many toxic traits. A book about his childhood. A book about his relationships. A book that likely expressed the deep sadness within BoJack. You see, when BoJack said warts and all, what he failed to consider is that most of it would be warts. Most of who he has forged himself to be, most of it wasn't good. But the thing is, BoJack's ego just can't take that. BoJack storms up to Diane and lets her know how furious he is about what he's just read. When he said warts and all, this wasn't precisely what he meant. He didn't expect her to be so brutally honest. Surely there must be more good stuff about him, right? I guess the message fails to reach him that what she wrote was likely an honest tale, an honest description, a nuanced look into his life. And the simple reason he doesn't like it, the simple reason he can't get around that, the simple reason he doesn't want to believe that is because he doesn't like himself. And having the many downfalls of his character displayed in front of him like that, it was just too much for him to bear. I've never seen BoJack this angry at Diane. He's furious, livid, you can see the vein popping from his neck. BoJack's words are brutal and harsh, and is far from willing to hear anything Diane has to say about the situation. He tells her, you are not going to publish this, that there was no chance this book was ever gonna be released to the public and that she'd have to start again. Once BoJack had left, you could see Diane's temper rising. By the millisecond, she's huffing and puffing, whips out her phone, and gets in contact with Wayne. Remember the guy who works for BuzzFeed? Wanna guess what she's gonna do? She was gonna make sure it was gonna get out there somehow. So she leaks it. Yeah, you can't really do that, Diane. It's kind of against contract. You might get sued. Everything seems to be going horrendously bad for BoJack. The movie that he was in has gone completely down the drain, all thanks to Todd and his stupid shenanigans. Todd is still clearly holding some resentment towards BoJack. Resentment that will never truly go away. Instead, it will stack as BoJack continues to do more horrific and heinous things. He absolutely disapproves of the book that Diane's written for him. Naomi Watts turns out to not actually like him and was simply using him for the role. What else could go wrong? Oh yeah, he finds out that Diane leaked the book. Well shit. Everybody on the set seems to have already found out about it. People are laughing at him. BoJack is embarrassed beyond belief. This was it.
5 shocking facts from new BoJack book? No.
No. Everyone, please turn off your internet. It has gone bad. I repeat, the internet has gone foul.
What a loser!
Glad I'm not that guy.
Give me your phones. I'm a celebrity. You have to listen to me.
Look at his deep well of sadness.
That was the final straw. He storms up to Diane, looks her straight in the face and tells her, "You're fired." Diane tries to plead her case, tries to tell BoJack that people will love this book, that this is the book that people will want to see, that people will want to read, that will captivate the audience, that will make people understand who BoJack is as a person. It depicts him as a human, a very flawed human, but one with a lot of depth, one with a lot of trauma, one who was dealt a very bad hand, and one who, despite constantly making bad decisions, deep down does have a heart. And while that mere fact doesn't make him a good person by any stretch of the imagination, it does humanize him and strays away from depicting BoJack as some callous, evil, unforgivable monster. But this wasn't enough. Diane had to go. Welcome to episode 11. Welcome to episode 11. Welcome to episode 11. BoJack and Diane are at Pinky's office and they're both trying to fight their case. Diane is like, hey, listen, this is the right thing to do. It's better to tell a true, insightful, considerate deep dive into the man who is BoJack instead of creating this false narrative that he is someone who clearly he is not. He isn't this great person, a person who is always caring and loving and does charity events every single day. No, BoJack is flawed, heavily flawed. He can be bitter, he can be mean, he can be cruel. He's also a man who hates the way he currently is, who was raised in a house with no love, no compassion, and thrown at life with no true guidance. She stands by what she has written and she is not backing down. This was the BoJack people would believe. This was the BoJack people would connect to. The response to the leaks were going amazing, people were loving it, the feedback was spectacular, but BoJack didn't care. And he says some vicious things, some mean things, things that I know he will soon regret. Diane is left feeling hurt, and shocked that even BoJack would stoop this low. But here's the thing, a book is needed in 5 days. BoJack is claiming he's able to write a book within this time, but clearly it can't be true. You couldn't write a book the other time you tried, and you had a lot longer, so what makes you think you can write one now? But of course, at this point, BoJack's ego is pulsating, so clearly he has no choice but to go through this endeavor to see if hopefully he can pull out a biography out of his arse that will please the audiences in masses. But this is a big undertaking that BoJack has to go through, so he calls for the help of Todd, and guess who? Sarah Lynn. Yeah, she makes a brief comeback in this episode, and he pleads with them to help him create a book that would rival the biggest books in the world, the most liked, the most loved, the most beheld. Beheld's that a word? But this recruitment of help in attempts to write this book only turns into a bloody drug bender where they all seem to be pretty much losing their minds, hallucinating, both auditory and visual. People are hurting themselves. Is that a gun? These guys have been stupefied by the drugs and they just keep on taking more. This situation only deteriorating more and more as time goes on. The couch is torn up, there's blood everywhere. What's happening? BoJack's plans had clearly failed. Now his mind was being submerged into dark thoughts. Thoughts of his impending days of reckoning. Thoughts taking him back to when he was a child. To his experiences of loneliness. Experiences of feeling unloved, uncared for, unwanted by his family, his mother and father, the people who should have wanted him the most. A fearful life and time itself depicted beautifully through this animation. We are taken through the cataclysmic hazards of BoJack's thoughts. Thoughts he pushes aside and tries to hide, buried beneath bottles of alcohol, the liters of fluid that were now evaporating, bringing forth his pains, his trauma, making him come face to face with his true self, whether he likes it or not. BoJack was trapped in a hell of his own making, and he was drowning. On this crazed psychedelic journey, BoJack has visions of what life would have been like if perhaps he never became famous. He lived a normal life. Visions of a life where he ended up with Charlotte. Visions that were brighter than his reality. Visions where he felt happy. The figment of his imagination disguised as Charlotte tells him she was thinking about how amazing life could have been if BoJack chose that life instead. But of course we know this is BoJack because this is all in his head. After all, this is a psychedelic trip. And it's through this psychedelic trip as well as other factors stacked on top that will eventually lead to BoJack trying to see if that life is still a possibility for him. But that's for another season. The next season to be specific. But BoJack, the grass isn't always greener on the other side. While it's easy to soul can ruminate on how things could have been better if this happened or that happened, or you met this person or you got this job. At the end of the day, nothing ever changes. You are still who you are still where you are, and your past still is what it is. As difficult as that reality may be to submit to, it is the reality. And BoJack, it is because of your actions, your failures that you are in the current predicament you're in. And whilst I empathize with your situation, with how you were raised, with your lack of direction you were given as a child, with the bubble of hatred you were raised in, that does not eliminate your responsibilities as an adult. That does not take away the consequences to your actions, and that does not make your bad deeds and horrible behaviors okay. You are where you are, BoJack, because of your actions. And thinking life would have been perfect if you had never gotten into the entertainment industry will never help. I mean, gosh, you got your first taste at fame from horsing around and instantaneously you became this horrid, narcissistic, self-absorbed arsehole within a matter of a short time span. Whilst yes, I do believe money and power can corrupt, but BoJack, that was always in you. But said money, said power is what gave you the confidence to show your true self. And whether you like it or not, BoJack, your true self is not a good person. I'm a person that truly believes in change, but BoJack is so set in his ways. And whilst you can get a faint sense that BoJack does want to improve, does want to change, does want to be better, he's not willing to put in the work to be better. At least not right now. Eventually this drug trip comes to an end and BoJack wakes up looking absolutely disheveled. His mind is foggy, he doesn't even know what day it is, his clothes are ragged, and he's missing a bloody shoe. Only God knows what the outside world was seeing while BoJack was going through this trip. Somehow he's ended up lying down in a random parking lot. He gets a call from Princess Carolyn. I guess while high, he still managed to send a copy of this book he'd just written with Todd and Sarah Lynn. And it's about as good as you may imagine. And by saying that, I mean it's not good at all. It almost feels like it just can't get any worse for BoJack. BoJack had finally realized that he did need Diane. That if there was any way this memoir was going to be released, it was going to be the book that Diane had written. He ends up finding where Diane is. She's currently at a ghostwriter con. I know, interesting. He apologizes for his words and his callous actions, for once again letting his ego take control. At this point, BoJack is desperate. He doesn't want to be this monster. He doesn't want to be this person who has no control of his life. He wants to be seen as good. He wants to be loved. He wants to be the person people can look up to. He wants to know that there is still hope, that he can be better. That at least Diane sees the goodness within him, however deep it may be. He needs, he craves, he urges, he pleads for this validation. Somebody looking at Diane, eager for her response.
I know that I can be selfish and narcissistic and self-destructive, but underneath all that, deep down, I'm a good person, and I need you to tell me that I'm good. Diane, tell me, please, Diane, tell me that I'm good.
But Diane says absolutely nothing. We have reached the finale. Episode 12. It sure has been a long, fun, exciting, emotional roller coaster of a journey. And if you've made it this far, I truly, truly appreciate you. I thank you for spending this time with me as we've journeyed through the life of BoJack Horseman in Season 1. This show is absolutely spectacular and it will always have a special place in my heart. Now, before we get underway talking about the final episode of this season, please, I would truly appreciate if you like, subscribe and share. I hope you've done it. It really helps this channel out. It really, really does, and I truly appreciate it.
This is a lot of hard work, and I hope you've enjoyed it.
So like I said, please make sure to hit the like button, subscribe, and oh yeah, turn the notification button on. I appreciate it. The episode starts off and we get to meet Secretariat. Finally, hello sir. He seems charismatic, funny, charming. This appeared to be a man who was clearly doing something right. At this very moment, he's currently on an interview. And on this interview, we learned that BoJack had sent him a letter, and said letter is being read out to Secretariat at this very point. We get a bit of an insight, a sense of how BoJack's mind was at this point in his life, at a point where he was still a kid and Secretariat was still alive. BoJack was 9 years old. Secretariat was his hero. The person BoJack likely looked to the times he felt the loneliest. The person who brought joy to BoJack. BoJack was his biggest fan. From this letter that's been read out, you could immediately get a sense that BoJack had been into comedy since he was a little kid. And of course, it makes sense why he later did comedy in his adult life, which then led to him doing Horseman Around. The letter speaks of BoJack's emotions and he wants to know from Secretariat, from his hero. How does he handle this? How does he cope with sadness? How does he change sadness? How does he improve? And the more you think about it, the more saddening it gets. Because BoJack wouldn't have had the confidence, the security within the relationship of his parents to be able to discuss and talk to them about his emotions, about the things he was feeling, about his developing sense of great sadness that was linked to the way he was treated by them. This was BoJack, a child asking for help the only way he knew how, and to the person he believed would understand him the most. Secretariat. And when Secretariat responds to BoJack, it's genuine, it's kind. You get a great sense that he actually cares about this kid, this random kid that's written him a letter. Aside from the fact that Secretariat was also a horse, BoJack likely seeing himself in him, this moment right here, this advice that Secretariat gives him, I imagine would have solidified even stronger the admiration and love that BoJack had for Secretariat. After all, this was his hero, and his hero was talking directly to him. This horse, who also didn't have the easiest background, the easiest time growing up, who wasn't given a silver spoon. This horse who had managed to climb to the top, who is now an athlete. This horse who is charismatic, funny, charming, who the ladies love and the men want to be. This horse was talking to him. He tells BoJack to always keep running forward, to never look back, that there is nothing there for him, that people will try to hold him down, people will try to prevent him from achieving, but all he needs to do is keep moving forward. All that ever is forward. And there is plenty of credence to this type of advice, to keep on moving forward, to try and achieve the best of what you can achieve, to not let people hold you down. All that is very true. And in some ways, BoJack did take this advice to heart. However, not in the ways that I think Secretariat had intended. Because whilst BoJack is still very much stuck in the past, he's past of horsing around, where people adored him, where he felt the most alive, where he felt he had the most worth. Whilst he is stuck in that past, he refuses to dive into and tackle the innumerable amount of issues he has in his heart, in his mind, in his soul, in his body. A multiplex of events, branch-like in nature, all joining together, each one leading to another thing, all accumulating and summarizing who he currently is. He refuses to get the help that he needs to assist him in becoming the person he wants to be, the better person that he wants to be deep down. And whilst ruminating on your past issues is never a good idea, it is important to at least understand yourself and understand the issues that you have gone through, the traumas that you have, so you can best find out how to tackle them, how to overcome them, how to push past, how to persevere, so that you can look those traumas in the eyes and you can tell them to fuck off, with confidence in your heart that they no longer hold you down. Whilst BoJack is very much stuck in the past in which he felt happiest, or perhaps that's not even the right word, perhaps the least miserable is a better description. Whilst he's stuck in that past, he refuses to acknowledge his many traumas, to seek the help necessary to help him get to a state of better mental clarity, better understanding of who he is.
Only a month after that interview, Secretary offs himself. God damn it!
I seriously can't imagine what BoJack would have been feeling at that point, what his brain was thinking, how distraught he must be. The person who had given BoJack such a great sense of solace. His hero had just died, and he did it to himself. The confusion, the turmoil, it truly must have been unbearable. Because from the outside, you see someone like Secretariat, he seems so happy. He appears to have it all. I'm sure all the horse ladies think he's really handsome. He was a successful athlete. What on earth could have gone wrong? And that just goes to show you, you never really know what someone is going through. And whilst money can buy comfort and convenience, which in turn can lead you to feeling happier, it can never buy happiness.
We are back to present day, and it has been 3 months since the release of this book, and oh boy are things going absolutely fantastically well. Like, BoJack really won a fucking Golden Globe. He really won because of this book.
BoJack, say thank you to Diane.
Of course, BoJack's on stage doing his acceptance speech, pretending like this is the book he wanted to initially come out. BoJack, you're so full of yourself. Once again, forging lies to try and look the best he possibly can in front of this audience, make himself look like it was his idea to be this vulnerable, his idea to show the true depths of his character.
But that aside, this was a big day for BoJack. The lights of stardom were shining down upon him again. He can feel it. This is it. The rejuvenation of his career, surely it has to be. But even today, even with all the celebrations, even with the adoration he's getting, even with the praise, he still doesn't seem happy.
Princess Carolyn shares her rather bleak attempt at motivating BoJack, and she's like, hey BoJack, if you're not happy today, with all this going on, with all you're achieving, you'll never be happy again. Yeah, Princess Carolyn, I don't think that's the best thing to say. It's kind of dark, depressing, and downright morbid. Of course, Princess Carolyn's still with Vincent. I'm never not going to find that weird. Why is this a thing? I'm sorry, I know it's meant to be this little gag that comes in and out here and there, but I simply don't find it all that funny. I'm sure there are people who do. I'm sure there are people who absolutely love Vincent and are staring at me with fucking daggers. How dare you insult Vincent, you buffoon?
I'll insult who I like. You can't tell me what to do.
I simply never really found the humour in his character, and through all his appearances in the series, he perhaps only conjured a laugh or two, or maybe even 3, if I give him the benefit of the doubt. However, whilst I don't find his character all too interesting, I do most definitely believe it helped in developing and broadening the character of Princess Carolyn, specifically in Season 2.
as we, the audience, are able to infer and deduce things about her character due to her relationship with Vincent. So yes, like I said, not a massive fan of Vincent, but it was 2 episodes showing their relationship that I really started to dissect and try to interpret messages that I believe the writers were trying to portray in correlation to who she was as a character. But hey, that aside, let's get back to this episode. It's really unfortunate that by this point, BoJack still hasn't really learned anything since the release of the book. A young lady who has become a fan of said book, someone who seemed to actually admire the intricateness of BoJack and his mind, who felt a connection and a sense of understanding of who he is. She comes up to BoJack and lets him know how impactful the book was to her, and guess what BoJack's response is? Not, "Oh wow, I'm so happy you were able to connect with this book that told very sensitive and detailed parts of my life, a book that was an expression of my vulnerabilities. I'm very happy that this is something you connected with." No, BoJack's like, "Oh, that's amazing, cool, wanna sleep with me?" Like, come on, BoJack. You're not this much of a twat, are you? Oh, you are? Okay. But there seems to always be a groupie there willing to fulfill BoJack's calamitous sexual desires. Oftentimes the women that lack any sense of self-worth. But of course, this will not move the cloud of misery that hovers over BoJack at any given moment. Let's talk about Diane real quick, because oh boy, has she become successful. Like Mr. Peanut Butter said, she's basically as famous as him. Power couple. This is a big change for Diane. Now she's even got paparazzi taking pictures of her. Her work is admired, and BoJack's biography was a brilliant showcase of what she can do. So brilliant, in fact, she gets a call from Sebastian St. Clair. Now you may be wondering, who on earth is Sebastian St. Clair? Sebastian St. Clair is a philanthropist. In English, please. He is a famed billionaire philanthropist. Follow him around, documenting his brilliant and awesome exploits, saving people in third world countries. And oh boy, does this guy seem like a pretentious douche. But who the fuck am I to talk? I'm not saving nobody. I'm just sitting on my desk eating Cheetos and recording this. But don't you worry, Sebastian St. Clair will definitely be a returning character, and we'll learn more a bit about him and see if he's actually genuine in his intentions, or if he's just a little bit of a grifter, bitch, asshole. Sorry. You see, Diane isn't quite certain she wants to accept this job opportunity, but here's the thing. She's leaning way more towards it because Diane is a person who's always chasing that bigger thing, that bigger dream, that bigger achievement, always trying to achieve, always trying to ascend. And this will really come into display more in season 2, this sense, this fear that she has of not achieving in life, of not doing greater, of not being someone of merit, someone to be remembered. Likely a fear stemming from her family, a fear of not wanting to be anything like them, wanting to be so far apart from what she grew up in, the people she grew next to, the people who are her family. So yeah, this opportunity, it's scary, it's dangerous, but it's also new, it's exciting. It's something that she feels will give her a sense of purpose, a sense of significance in this otherwise trifling world. She goes to Mr. Peanut Butter wanting to know exactly how he'd feel about this, but he's not quite on board with this idea. And he goes into a bit of a spiel about exactly how he defines life and exactly what he believes life should be about. And oh boy, is it unnecessarily dark and depressing. And that sense of doom for some reason is exacerbated by the way he says it, so nonchalantly with a smile on his face. For that reason it was actually kind of funny as well. I'll be honest, Mr. Peanut Butter, you got me there. It was after BoJack had sex with one of the groupies he met at the award celebrations, and the bed had broken due to their vigorous action, that BoJack saw the book Secretariat, the one that Diane had made. And at that very moment it hit him. BoJack had always wanted to make a movie about Secretariat, playing the lead protagonist. I mean, it was a role that he was initially supposed to have, not long before Herb was fired from horsing around, but that fell through. Now this was his opportunity. He has pull in the game. With the release of this book and all the attention he's getting, the tension around his name, the revitalization of BoJack Horseman, this was his opportunity to get Secretariat made into a movie. But of course, this is not an easy ask. BoJack's middle-aged, Secretariat died when he was in his late 20s. But BoJack doesn't care about all that. This is something he's dreamt of. To him, he believes if he can't get this done, nothing would have been worth it. That all his efforts would have been a waste. This was his new fixation. This was now what he believed he needed to do to achieve that sense of contentness with himself. But will it actually lead to that? Or will it just be an additional string in the line of disappointment that is BoJack's life? We shall see.
Side plot with Mr. Peanut Butter and Todd, they've been brainstorming ideas for PB Living and trying to find out exactly what this business could entail. What could they do that would be revolutionary, that would be magnificent? Business ideas like Halloween in January, because who doesn't want Halloween specifically in January? Like, why can't I buy Halloween merchandise in the month of January? Tell me, somebody make it make sense.
Because it doesn't.
But you know what? Halloween in January, that's trash. Throw it in the bin. They make something even more innovative. Smoothies. A mood that you drink. What's going on here? They're trying to get BoJack into it. They want him to be an investor, to get in on the ground floor, but BoJack's not having any of this. Also, at this point, BoJack was in a rather flaccid mood because he had the audition for the Secretariat movie. An audition that, of course, he got the ball rolling on. However, that did not guarantee he would get the lead role. And when he performed in this audition, it was spectacular. No more was he BoJack Horseman, he truly embodied Secretariat. There was such a sense of authenticity and wallowing pain from his words. Words that likely BoJack himself connected to. Words that he felt, words that reflected also on him, on his life, and how he views himself and people around him. It was magical. And BoJack would have surely gotten the part if not for bloody Andrew Garfield getting in the way. Andrew Garfield, why? Why would you do this to BoJack? I mean, I'm sorry, BoJack, but wouldn't you go for Andrew too? Somewhere else, Princess Carolyn and Vincent are going through some ups and downs in their relationship. I don't care about these. I'm sorry. Long story short, they break up. They end up getting back together by the end of the episode. Vincent goes and apologizes. Blah, blah, blah. Moving on to BoJack. So remember how I said that Andrew Garfield got the position of Secretariat? It turns out he's not able to do it anymore. Do you want to know how? He fell down and broke every single bone in his body. And BoJack has Todd and Mr. Peanut Butter to thank. Wait, what do you mean? Oh, Todd and Mr. Peanut Butter opened a Halloween in January store, but there were no floorboards. Oh, and then Andrew Garfield went in the store and fell through the floor. That wasn't there. Oh, and then he broke every single bone in his body. Oh, then Kelsey, the director of this movie, then calls BoJack, letting him know that he's got the part. Interesting. Okay. BoJack is ecstatic. He's happy. He can't believe he actually has this role. Things might be turning around. Perhaps this will be the thing that makes him feel complete, that makes him feel whole, that makes him feel content. Honoring a person who meant so much to him as a child and still means a lot to him now. This was it. Till then, things remained the same. He's still alone, still the same old BoJack sitting on his couch, watching Horsing Around. A show where he played a character that had a life unrecognizable, polar opposite to his. A show where he played a character that seemed truly happy. But hey, at least he's got Secretariat now, right? We also find out that Diane had decided to take on a job as a character consultant on the Secretariat movie, a job offered to her by Princess Carolyn. So after many months of BoJack and Diane not coming face to face, they finally reunited. Whilst there is an air of uncomfortability, there is also that sense of familiarity. They still understand each other. They still care about each other. BoJack is very welcoming to the fact that him and Diane will be working together again, and ensures her that there is nothing weird about her accepting this job, knowing the ups and downs of their friendship. BoJack confided in her about his fears, his worries, about the fact that this was everything he'd ever dreamed of, this trophy he had been holding the entire episode, tightly gripped around his hand, yet he didn't feel the way he thought he should, or he would. Diane talks about how when she first moved to LA, she thought she was going to be doing really important work that was groundbreaking, work that truly made huge differences in this world. And I guess she doesn't get a sense that she's doing that by working as a character consultant for this movie. Once again, this reinforces and emphasizes that urge she has within her, that urge to achieve, that urge to do something bigger, to prove that she is not like her family. And this inner turmoil of hers continues to boil over into season 2, and we'll get to that whenever we get to that. They both confide in each other. BoJack asks Diane, "So do you think I'm a good person?" Deep down,
And she says,
That's the thing. I don't think I believe in deep down. I kind of think all you are is just the things that you do.
Well, that's depressing.
and that's exactly the thing. Whilst BoJack is not a heartless, cruel, vicious monster with the sole intention of destroying and making others miserable, whilst he does feel guilt, whilst he does want to be better, whilst he knows and is aware of his flaws, even though he tries his best to often act oblivious to them, there are nuggets in the season and the series where he self-analyzes and knows how much of a flawed person he is. But even though BoJack claims to want to do better, to be better, even though he has a sense of guilt, even though, yes, he had a horrible childhood, at the end of the day, like I've said before, your actions are what make you who you are. Is the core part of what determines if you are a good guy. And like I said, life is never black and white. It's pretty much always different variations of grey. But the main point is, simply wanting to be good is not good enough. You have to put in the work, you have to put in the time, the actions. Being kind, being thoughtful, being generous, being forgiving. Being good is more than just wanting to be good. You need to prove that through your actions time and time and time and time again. And it never stops. You are an accumulation of your actions. So tell me, what do your actions say about you?